As far as I can understand, your colon was essentially blasted away.
I had gone close to 20 times a day.
To the bathroom 20 times in one day. My God.
I was at home and I flared up, and something about this flare, I knew it was the last time. Everything that these guys gave me didn't work at all. They came in and they said, "I'm sorry, tomorrow morning, come down with us and we're going to take your colon out." I always say that I have to ask my bag permission to do anything.
Yeah.
It's the boss now. This is when I first really knew what depression was. Sometimes you do these things in the moment and then you calm down, you think, "Lee, what are you doing?" I could share all sorts of things. I slowly discovered that certain plant foods were causing me real issues, and I developed like a love-hate relationship with food. The first 30 days was just a challenge. BBBE. After 3 weeks, my depression was gone. The way I saw the world, it was like being reborn. You don't need fibre to feed the gut. That's just a myth. If I was to cut a pyramid shape into a piece of pineapple and just swallow that, that will not change whatsoever as it enters your colon.
It's not taught at university, I can say that firsthand.
We've been lied to about everything. It's hard to not be a little bit bitter because I feel like I've been failed. I'm done. I'm never going back. I will die at home alone. I will never go back to the hospital ever.
Welcome to Dr. App's podcast. Today I have, I think it's fair to say, the most extraordinary person I've ever spoken to in my life. His name is Lee Copus. He's been through things which I would not wish on anyone. He has had incredibly difficult mental health struggles that have shown up in his personal life. He has been through ridiculous levels of physical health problems as well. And he has come from a very, very dark place to completely turn his life around by looking at his diet, realizing that things like plant foods have absolutely destroyed his gut with tangible physical evidence, and then gone carnivore, healed himself both physically and mentally to completely turn his life around. I promise you, you don't want to miss this one. Lee, thank you very much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure.
I've really been looking forward to this.
Awesome.
Because your story, I think, is very, very unique. Well, to most people anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go straight in. So as far as I can understand, your colon was essentially blasted away, shall we say, by plant food. And now you have, let's call it layman's terms, a plastic bag in place of a colon. Is that right?
Yeah. So I have every part of my digestive tract all the way down to the ileum, which is the last part of your small intestine.
Yeah.
As food empties into my bag, that's where it would hit the colon, the very beginning of the colon. So I essentially see the state that food's in as it would enter the colon, things that do and don't break down.
So you don't need a doctor to tell you what doesn't hit your colon.
No, not anymore.
You can literally see it with your own eyes. There's no debate, no opinion.
For sure.
Factual.
Yeah.
So I want to get back to before this happened. Obviously, you had no idea about this going on in the digestive system. And then one day you did know.
Yeah.
How old were you when that happened?
I was around about 22, something like that, when 22. I had some issues. It was around 2012. So actually, when I got my diagnosis, I would have been 24. Just about.
Okay.
I think I had some issues before then, which I kind of ignored. Some very mild diarrhea with some blood and things like that.
Yeah.
But because it came and went so quickly, I thought, okay, I'm fine, not a problem.
Okay.
But it wasn't until 2012 when I had a bit of a bad bout, a flare up, which I didn't really understand at the time. That's what I was flaring up with ulcerative colitis.
Okay.
And I went down to the doctor, and that's when I was referred to the hospital to have a bit of an exploratory and to figure out what's actually going on.
Wow.
So, I had some biopsies taken, probing device, sort of visual and biopsies, and then they took that back for samples and things like that, and it was confirmed ulcerative colitis.
Wow. Okay.
So, 24 years old, and it was quite mild actually at the time, very low end, and so they weren't too concerned. I wasn't overly concerned because I was being seen to by professionals, and you feel like you're being seen to.
So what about leading up to the diagnosis? Can you tell me, what your day-to-day life was like? What were you doing for work? What were you eating roughly? What was your mental health like?
Well, leading up to this point in time, funnily enough, I never really reported too many gut issues, can you believe?
Okay.
I never really felt a lot of pain and discomfort. Other people would talk about spicy foods. Oh, I couldn't do that because the next day. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I could get away with cereal in the morning and salads. But I also ate some meat. I was never vegan, but I was definitely on a plant-based diet. Most of my food intake was based around plants.
Okay, every meal, very little meat.
very little meat, and it was always very lean. And actually, it was hardly ever red meat. We're talking about chicken, cod, when we're talking about fish. And yeah, mostly plants. I seem to base my meals around grains, and so it would be sort of porridge oats with fruit in the morning and things like that. Come lunch, it might be a whole grain wrap or a whole grain sandwich, and then some fillers, cheese, salad, things like that. Yeah. Dinner time, pasta, rice, Mediterranean vegetables, all this stuff that's supposed to be good for me. Yeah. It's supposed to be good for my skin. I had terrible skin. It's supposed to be good for just my body, yet my body wasn't happy. Clearly, I had these gut issues behind the scenes, even though I wasn't aware of it. Yeah. I was obviously triggering an inflammatory response in my gut. And I think that it was all these plant materials that were in my diet multiple times a day, because I was also told to eat little and often. When we listened to that was the official advice, the mainstream, little and often, fiber, grains, vegetables, fruits. That's the stuff that's healthy. That's what you want to eat if you want to be healthy and you care about your health. Yeah. And so I listened to the advice. I did care about my health. I tried my best to be healthy and to present as a healthy person, but it never really seemed to work. I was always quite confused. So you were like a textbook of what is the medical advice is. Almost. You do it following it all. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I was like calculating the food guidelines to a T, but to me, when I looked at a plate, if there was grains, there was vegetables, there was colors there. I did understand the importance of protein, and I always have eaten animal source protein, but I just kind of addressed things in terms of macros. So I thought, well, there's my carbs. There's my protein. Yeah. I've got healthy fats, the healthy fats from the plants. I used to drizzle olive oil over my food. Wow. And, think that I did a good job. I thought, I'm ticking all the boxes. And then what about in terms of your mental health at that point? Were you facing any mental health issues, or were you just a regular person, would you say? I would say I was only a regular person when I was really young. Okay. I loved my childhood. Life was great. School was great. Yeah. Absolutely everything about my childhood, holidays, family, brilliant. Yeah. But I would say as I became a young adult, that's when my outlook changed. The way I felt about me changed. I became quite insecure. Just going to say I can't help it. I'm looking over to the side, so you can obviously edit that out. No, it's fine. You carry on. This is all done in one take, as you can tell. Yeah. You just carry on looking at me, don't worry. Okay, so, right. Or if you want to address the viewers directly, feel free to. No, I just thought if I keep doing that, I don't want to. Don't worry about it, man. Don't worry. Where are we? Becoming a young adult. So it wasn't until I became a young adult that I started to feel mental health decline, I guess you could say. My skin was showing some signs of acne and things like that. And we're talking between 18 to 22, that kind of... Earlier than that, actually. I remember sort of seeing things I didn't like on my skin, 15 and 16. And this actually got progressively worse quite quickly. So I've got quite a lot of sort of acne scarring, and maybe people would attribute that to my new diet. But of course, if I started smoking 2 months ago, I probably wouldn't have lung cancer today. So it doesn't work like that. Clearly, the plants were a problem for me. Stress, bad. My outlook, really bad. Okay. The way I treated myself, and I would just berate myself, honestly. Okay. I was quite insecure, like I said. And for some reason, I was confused. Why do I feel like this? Why am I short, maybe? I don't know. Yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of people will be, relating to what you felt. With all that going on, did you have any, I know you said just before you were diagnosed, you had specific acute gut issues like bleeding and the diarrhea. But in those years where your skin was getting worse and you were eating this diet, which had all the colors and grains and everything, what about your gut in those years? Did anything ever feel off to you? The only thing that felt off is I had these strange sensations. It's very, very difficult to describe. It wasn't painful. Yeah. It wasn't even like discomfort associated with, I need to go to the toilet kind of thing. It wasn't like a bowel movement obstruction or anything like that. It was something, it was almost like in my blood. Right. I can remember feeling some issues around my gut area, but it wasn't painful. And sometimes this was followed by bloody diarrhea. Okay. And when did that first start? How old were you? I think I was probably around 22. Okay. Yeah. Before, so I think, 22 when I began to experience some of these sensations, some of the bleeding, but it was very, very mild, and I didn't pay too much attention to it. Okay. It was a bit of a shock, when you see on a bright white piece of toilet paper and you see this bright red color, obviously that's a little bit of a concern. But because it came and went so quickly, I wasn't actually overly concerned, and I didn't even feel the need to go to the doctor until it was noticeably worse. And I did start to experience some real discomfort pertaining to bowel movements, and that was really around beginning of 2024. 2012.
So when you first noticed this to when you saw a doctor, can you give us an idea of that time frame? Because I think a lot of people are in the same boat. They notice something and they think it will go away.
Yeah, so that would have been about 2 years from when I started to notice some funny sensations, issues, the bloody diarrhea. I would say 2 years later it was noticeably a problem. It was something that clearly I was having to live with. Which was why I thought, well, I don't really know what's going on. I need to get this seen to, at least get diagnosed, and then potentially hear some kind of protocol to address the health kind of thing.
And what were you thinking, like in terms of potential cause? Did you even consider what it could be?
I hadn't really much of a clue about ulcerative colitis. I had heard of Crohn's disease. I knew about IBS and I knew about bowel cancer. And at the time,
so you thought it was one of those three?
I thought I would probably be too young. If you're looking at the odds, it's unlikely. I mean, stranger things, but it's unlikely it would have been bowel cancer. I remember there were these bowel cancer awareness adverts at the time. And as soon as I saw one of them, I could literally tick every single box.
Really?
So part of you does think, oh, goodness, I hope so. I hope not. I hope that's not the issue, And actually, when I went to the doctor, the very first thing that he said was, if you think it's bowel cancer, you can forget it. Really? So that was the attitude as well. Yeah. And I think maybe he got sick of these patients coming in, responding to the advert. Be careful, get yourself checked out if you've got any of these symptoms. I could tick every single one.
But he wasn't having it?
No, he didn't think it was bowel cancer. He didn't even think it was something too serious. He kind of seemed quite casual. I did see a few different doctors, actually. So the second doctor I saw, can you believe, recommended a beer a night. And it wasn't a non-alcoholic beer. It was just a beer. He said, drink a beer a night. And I think his thinking behind this was to try and create a regular bowel movement. The frequencies would maybe be healthier. I'm not sure with what he was thinking. Yeah, obviously, you've got all these...
was this a GP?
Yeah, GP. Yeah, just down the road from me.
My God.
I won't say his name.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So the first one, bit of a funny attitude. If you think it's bowel cancer, forget it, you're too young. Second one, drink a beer a night. And this was before I got my diagnosis. This is the kind of thing that they said before I got my diagnosis.
So at that point, you had, just to clarify, you had no idea what could have caused it. No. You were still in the unknown.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you go from two doctors, one telling you it's not cancer and the other telling you to drink beer every night? How did you go from there to someone who was willing to look at it seriously?
I suppose, if we go back again from that second doctor that I saw, he was the one that referred me to the hospital to find out what happened. Obviously,
so he told you to drink a beer and then go to the hospital.
Yeah, it sounded like a good plan to me, a beer at night. I'm not going to say no to that. No, I did drink a beer every night, but I certainly liked the sound of that, but it wasn't until I got my diagnosis and then you start to look online, you can find some videos and then you've got some people talking about it. And these people that are talking about it, they knew more than me. I'm listening to these people and I'm just assuming that these guys, they have a good protocol or they've seen this before. It's not a problem. I'm not alone. Follow these rules or this advice and things will look up. But that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. And when you went to the hospital, you mentioned briefly at the start of this that they used like a camera system. Can you give us a little bit more detail from start to finish of what diagnosis methods were used to try and figure out what was going on?
So I think specifically it was called a sigmoid endoscopy. So it's basically a probing device that has the ability to kind of blow up parts of your intestine so that they can then have a look with the camera. And then they had these little pincers that would go in and just nab little biopsies.
Okay, so they could put it on the microscope.
Exactly,
okay.
Yeah, and that's what they ran for tests to come back with that confirmation of my ulcerative colitis.
Okay, and what was the time gap from taking the sample to them telling you, okay, we know
I think it probably would have been about 2 weeks or something like that. Okay,
so it's not too long.
No, not too long. Okay. No. And then I would go back to the GP and then he would talk about what it is.
So they discharged you back to just carry on with primary care, I guess?
Yeah, I wasn't like staying in the hospital or anything. I didn't even take the anaesthetic, so I could see
Oh, wow. Okay.
As they were probing. It was really, really uncomfortable.
So you could see the actual screen?
I could see the screen. I could see their faces and everything, which is interesting.
What did you see on the screen, and what were their faces saying?
Well, on the screen, it just looks like this dark, strange tube, like the inside of a worm kind of thing, that then becomes bigger, and now you can kind of see the walls of this worm, and they carried on traveling around different corners,
Okay.
I had two women sort of holding my hands like I was giving birth. And the doctor was kind of trying to be quite light and funny, going to go around this corner. It's going to touch some nerves. It's going to make you feel like you're going to want to go for a crap. But that's not going to happen because we've just cleared your system out. So that kind of thing. And it's very uncomfortable. It's where the air is expanding quite severely. And
you can feel that almost pressure.
It's the air that causes the pain. Very uncomfortable, yeah.
Fine. So that's what the sensation you're feeling is, the air.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's all I could really feel. Unless you look closely to the little pincers, and then you feel this tiny little kind of thing as they take the biopsies. No, not at all. Okay. No.
Interesting. And when the doctors were looking, were they in utter shock?
Not the first time, no. So this time I think was just quite normal. They probably, regularly check people's back ends and the colon and that kind of thing to see where they are. And usually in the beginning, like it was the beginning for me, it's mild. And you could even class this as like proctitis, so very, very low end. It was in the sort of the rectomy area and just above. Beyond that point, it wasn't too bad. There wasn't any signs of colitis. Yeah. But this obviously would change going forward.
Okay. So it sounds to me like you went through that to try and get that diagnosis. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't when the surgery was done.
Oh, no.
So when you went through this first diagnostic period and they said to you, Lee, you've got ulcerative colitis, what went through your mind then? Did you even know what it was?
Didn't really know what it was. So it wasn't until I was back with my GP who was just explaining, it's hereditary. Yeah. That's their answer. It's hereditary and we do have drugs to treat it. So that's their answer, essentially. They did also talk about the fact that, obviously it's an autoimmune disease. Your immune system is essentially attacking healthy tissue in your colon. But they couldn't say why. Their answer is it's hereditary. We've got drugs and perhaps you need to increase your fiber. Increase grains, increase vegetables, increase. And I didn't question this.
Again, and that's a vegan's dream at the end of the day.
Yeah. And of course I'm thinking, well, you're the professional. Yeah. You know best. I'm listening. I'm a little bit concerned about my health. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to take your advice. And so that's essentially what I did. Went home and, I've got ulcerative colitis. I can learn a little bit more about it, but I should eat more fiber and I need to be conscientious about it.
So let's go through the advice. There was more fiber, more grains, whole grains. Mm-hmm. Anything else they said?
Like little and often.
Little and
as
often.
well, yeah. Okay. And it's the same advice actually once you've had the surgery. Okay. Little and often.
And then did they mention anything about specific fats or meat or anything
like that? They
didn't
talk about meat actually, and they didn't talk about fat. It was really just
get plants,
whole grain and whole form plant foods.
Okay.
So I guess they're thinking, fiber, all the way, just fiber.
Okay.
And balance, things like that.
So that happened. You got told this is what you've got. How did that change your day-to-day life apart from the diet, if at all?
Yeah, it didn't change it massively. Obviously, now I'm just quite aware of what I'm eating, what's on my plate. Am I doing enough? That kind of thing. Breakfast, lunch, dinner were my main meals, and I wouldn't feel guilty about snacking because, a palm of almonds, just like a bunch of almonds, they're good, they're fibrous. That's the sort of thing I've been recommended to eat. All the time I was in remission, and so with ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, you typically go in and out of remission. When you're in remission, you feel like a normal person. Right. You can get up, wash, leave the house.
Can't tell anything's happened.
No pain, not even a sensation or anything, But when you flare up, that's a different story. And so in the beginning, obviously quite mild, but when I was flaring up, you start to lose your confidence. And in the very beginning that I wasn't on medication. And so for 2 years from 2012, from getting my diagnosis to 2014, I was medication free and just trying to manage.
What is a flare-up? Describe to people that don't know what that feels like.
Yeah, so a flare-up would be where your body, you basically end up with bloody diarrhoea. Okay. I think really where you have your immune system attacking healthy parts of your colon, that might create some inflammation and ulcers and bleeding. Right. And then when that is going on, enough's enough, the body then starts to sort of secrete blood and tissues. And
how often was that happening for you?
In the beginning, 2 or 3 times a year for 2 weeks.
Okay, so it's not like every week or every month.
No.
Okay.
But
for 2 weeks at a time.
2 weeks at a time, you'd lose your confidence. You'd have some bloody diarrhea, and you wouldn't really want to stray too far from your house. But I wasn't chronic. Like some people, when I listened to some people in the beginning, it was much worse, and so I thought I was one of the lucky ones. Wasn't too many. There wasn't too many bowel movements in a day, even on a flare up in the beginning. Well, when I say that, 5, 6, or 7.
Julian, do you mind just? This is what happens when you have a low budget production. No, you carry on.
I'll go back and say,
let's carry on. We'll leave this in.
Oh, okay. So
people can understand how little money I have to have my own studio.
So in the beginning, like the bowel frequency movements weren't too regular when I was listening to other people. So 5, 6, or 7 times, which does maybe sound like a lot to some people, but wasn't too extreme. And
5, 6, 7 times in what time frame?
In a day. So from being up.
Oh, okay.
So I wouldn't really be waking up in the middle of the night. No real pressing signals in the middle of the night. But from the moment I wake up, then, 1 bowel movement, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 for a couple of weeks at a time. And actually I did feel weak through these flare-ups. I'm losing blood. I'm losing
water.
I'm losing water. I was dehydrated. I definitely felt that. I didn't really know how to treat that in the beginning. Just thought, well, more plants, right? Just eat more fibrous plants. That's going to solve my problems. Didn't really work.
We can laugh about that now.
Yeah.
Incredible. So that was going on for 2 years.
Yeah.
You had the ulcerative colitis diagnosis. This is how your life was going. You had these flare-ups a few times a year. That's what a flare-up looked like. So what made you go back to the hospital?
So in 2014, things just stepped up a notch. And
in terms of like symptoms?
Symptoms, I was starting to feel a little bit more uncomfortable. There were more warning signs before I flared up. I would almost feel like there was something wrong with me. Things coursing through my veins. Everything felt off.
Okay.
It was almost like I was coming down with something. And then the next day I would go to the toilet. I'm like, right, okay.
Okay,
makes
so you
sense.
could almost predict when these flare-ups were going to happen.
Yeah, for me, 1 or 2 days before, I could kind of feel it coming. The first time, second time this happened, you don't know for sure. Like when you think when you think you're getting sick, some people have symptoms that they get first. For example, I'll have like something, a dry throat or something. I think, I'm probably coming down with something. Yeah. I would feel these symptoms, very subtle, but you just feel off. You don't feel quite right in yourself. You feel like maybe you're coming down with something. And then the next day, obviously starting another flare. And in 2014, these flares, it was kind of like 10, 12 times a day, more blood. They would last maybe 3 weeks. And so it was on the rise,
So more often, and each time was longer as well.
Yeah.
Right. And this entire time, you have been following the advice given to you, more fiber, more plant food, more whole food, more grains, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and didn't even really question it, can you believe, in some ways, thinking like, I'm just unlucky. Well, it's just me. It's just my genetics. This is what they've said. Oh, they told me that might happen, this kind of thing. And so it wasn't until I went back, then I was describing my symptoms, the frequency in which I was going to the toilet and stuff like that. And then they prescribed me steroids, essentially. I can't remember the exact name, but it was a pretty typical colitis steroid treatment.
Okay. Yeah. So for 2 years you had these flare-ups, it got worse. Then they gave you the steroid. Mm-hmm. Did it help?
It helped for the first couple of flares, no doubt. I mean, when I started taking this, I thought, wow, this is incredible, actually, like almost miraculous. It almost cut the frequency of bowel movements in half. Wow. It didn't feel quite as intense. It almost felt like it was controlling it a little bit, like holding it in, holding it back. The discomfort wasn't there as much. And I think at the time I didn't really question the drugs either. I wasn't thinking, well, is this going to fix the problem? Are we addressing the problem? Is this something that I'm able to take long term? I didn't really question that either. Okay. But again, I'm at the doctor's. He knows better. I'm naive. I'm going to just take your advice and continue to,
So at least temporary relief in terms of symptoms, at least, not necessarily the root cause. We don't know.
Exactly, yeah.
But the symptoms felt slightly better.
Yeah.
So when you also took colitis 2 years, things got worse, steroid, slight symptom relief, something must have gotten worse.
Yeah, it got to a point where it just kind of went back to where it was before I was on the drug. So now,
even while you're on the drug?
Yeah. And so it was like the drugs aren't working anymore kind of thing. And so now I'm just eating lots of fibrous plant material. I'm taking their medication, and now things are once again getting worse, exacerbating, for sure. And so this continued actually for 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah, 3 years.
You're kidding me?
Yeah.
So as it was getting worse, something must have made you or the doctor say, right, we've got to take another step up now. They tried the steroid, that's not worked. What was the tipping point to say we've got to go a level above a steroid?
To be honest with you, I was at home and I flared up for the last time, and something about this flare, I knew it was the last time, whether it was a good or bad thing, there was no going back. And so I instantly felt poisoned. It was like, this time was different. Something's wrong. Something's really, really bad. And where I was going maybe 12 times, I'd gone 15, 16 times by this point. I think
in one day.
On a really bad day before this last flare, I had gone close to 20 times a day kind of thing.
20 to the bathroom 20 times in one day.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
I mean, that must wreck your mental health, like your ability to be social, like
everything,
to hold a job.
Everything. You can't relax, and it just robs you of your day. You can't achieve anything, apart from anything else, you're sort of causing a lot of irritation the amount of time. That's when I discovered wet wipes, by the way.
Okay.
So, when you're going that many times a day, it's relentless. At the time I was living with my parents, and the toilet was upstairs, so I'm going up and down stairs, getting weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
I would often noticeably lose weight on a flare up, especially when it was getting towards like a month, where you just, you can't shake this thing, and it's like a month and you're really off, you're not right. Metabolic homeostasis is just not there whatsoever.
So how did that affect your mentality? I mean, you must have questioned, can I go to work? I can't go to work today. I can't go meet my friends for dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm guessing that's what you went through.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, work was a nightmare. I'm a window cleaner, and I still am a window cleaner, but back then we used to use ladders. It was a little bit harder, a little bit more graft. And there are times, obviously, when I'm out in the sticks, if you really needed to, you can go somewhere in the woods or something. But most of the time you're on these properties down streets, there's not a toilet in sight. And I'm not one of those people that likes to encroach on other people's, property and their lives. And so I wouldn't want to ask to use the toilet. It was pretty tricky. I never really had any kind of embarrassing accidents, but there's a couple of times where I've had to go home. Yeah. I lost money. I've lost money because of it, because my condition means that I can't be at work. I'm self-employed and still earning money kind of thing.
And that must have, what did that do to your life with your friends? Because obviously you can't physically see them the way you used to.
The funny thing is about that is that at the time I became a bit of a workaholic. So from this whole journey, I was from working at Sainsbury's, then working at home base, sort of retail, this kind of stuff, and then getting into window cleaning. So
it's a DIY store for the non-UK viewers, by the way, home base.
So I'd kind of just continued to lose confidence with things. My skin was getting worse. The way I felt, everything, self-belief.
It's like a vicious circle.
Yeah, I actually didn't really have much of a social life at this point in my life. And so I was dealing with this alone in many ways, but also with my family. And they were the ones that knew what I was going through. And I was living at home still at that point. And so in a way, it didn't really affect me too much in that sense. But again, I'm at home in a small box, and that's terrible for your mental health. That's one of the worst things you can do, is to try and be safe and shy away, not go out and not do things that are hard, not adopt responsibilities, to just, make an excuse and think that you're safe at home. So that's the last place you want to be.
I guess even sunshine, even vitamin D.
Everything. Yeah. My sleep was bad, that started to get affected. And so, all these things, just a dangerous loop. Every one of these ingredients was playing their part.
Yeah. So as you were, for want of a better phrase, going down this funnel, shall we say, then this was post-steroid and it had not really done anything. And you said you went through a point where one day you knew that was the last flare.
Yeah.
Did you go, is that when you went to see your GP again?
No, I went straight to the hospital. So basically what happened is, I flared, like I said, nearly close to 20 times around there on a really bad day. After 2 days of kind of 15 times, 18 times, that kind of frequency, it shot straight up and I was going to the toilet 30 times a day. Yeah. I'd never known that before. And what was happening, my mum and dad had just gone to the States. They didn't really know 100% what I was going through. I was starting to flare when they went, but, I know what I'm doing, and I've done this before and it's going to be okay. This was different. And it was just me and my brother. I was laying on the couch, and by the time I'd gone up, after getting a signal, go up to the toilet, sort yourself out, come back downstairs. By the time I laid down and got comfortable, I was getting another signal to go straight back up. And so I was just, going up and down, up and down. And towards the end of the day, you getting halfway up the stairs, you're just shattered. Just absolutely shattered. You'd lost so much water and electrolytes and losing blood and iron and all this kind of stuff. And little did I know at the time, what I was passing was just the lining of my colon. That was coming. It was coming out of me. I was on my way to perforation. And again, I didn't know that, again, at this point, my whole entire colon was riddled, considering it was low end. And so I got on the phone to my nan, because I wasn't driving at the time. Yeah. And so I said to her, this is the situation. I don't really think I've got another day in me. I really genuinely believe I can't do this for another day. She said, cool, right, I'll see you in the morning. We'll take you straight to the hospital. And so when we arrived, just waiting in the A&E sort of area, when they saw me, sort of immediately checked me over and done another exploratory kind of thing. But they could see I was very, very dehydrated, so they instantly wired me up with the intravenous saline water and that kind of thing. And
just to rehydrate you. Yeah.
And then they put me on steroids as well, some other steroids to lower inflammation right there and then, so they can kind of get me out of trouble while they investigate, stuff like that. So what happened is there was no way I was getting out. They could see the state I was in. I was quite emaciated, and I'd lost already quite a bit of muscle tissue. I remember looking down at my bicep.
I can imagine your body weight must have
it's crazy.
Spiraled right down.
Yeah. My composition was all over the place.
Yeah.
Very weak. And they decided to keep me in. And I think it was the next day or the day after that they did another camera
sigmoid.
That kind of thing. And again, I refused the anesthetic so I could kind of read the room. And this time it was just totally different. So I got the impression that they weren't overly concerned by the way I was describing things. And I think judging by the previous time that they saw me and all this stuff.
Was it the same people?
Records. I think the doctor was the same. Yeah, right. I think he's the main guy down.
Do you think he remembered you or recognised you?
Don't know. I don't know. He probably does this multiple times a day, every day. Of course, it's crazy. Yeah. But so I'm now laying down and I've got two women holding my hand again. Camera goes up there and I'm reading their expressions, and all of a sudden it wasn't fun and games and, being light. They were quite concerned, and then getting other people down here and talking. And then I'm like, they weren't even looking at me. They were really busy, just communicating between themselves.
Sometimes you just got to focus on
exactly. And so I'm now looking at them like, what? It's quite concerned, thinking, this sounds bad.
Yeah.
And so eventually when they sort of pull their attention to me, get me sorted, and they were explaining like there's a very, very good chance I'm not getting out of hospital with my colon. But we do have an immune suppressant drug, a potent immune suppressant drug. It's a trial drug. We'll put you on this, and there's a 50-50 chance around abouts that you will get into remission, come out of the hospital, and then you'll be on sort of even more medication.
Do you remember the name of that drug by any chance? It's probably got some complicated name.
I don't remember.
Nah, it's fine.
I don't remember. Yeah. They said it was around 50-50 shot. Yeah. And again, I don't remember the specifics, but they kept me on it for 2 days longer than they should. And this was an extremely potent drug, very, very dangerous. But certainly when you're in hospital and you've got all these issues around like germs and things, and your immune system is shut down. The thinking obviously behind that is, well, that's what's causing you your gut issues, even though it's also what's protecting you. It's your defenses.
I was just about to say that,
and attack that and just hope that it's like treating cancer in certain ways, hoping that the treatment won't kill you before the cancer does.
For the immune system, right?
Yeah.
So you were lying there. Obviously, you got told what you just got told. And the immune drug was given to you for a little while, plus 2 days. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing it didn't work.
No, it didn't work. I think it's funny because I'd say it was like 4 days and I was on it for 6 or 2 or 4. I can't remember the specific because this whole time was a bit strange, like a blur when you think back now. But they came in. It's almost like I'd been neglected, and they were hoping that we'll just try another day. We'll try another day. But they came in and they said, I'm sorry, this hasn't worked. Tomorrow morning, you're going to come down with us and we're going to take your colon out. So here's some stoma nurses. They're going to come in and talk to you about what stoma is. They came in with a pen and they drew a little circle on my stomach because that's where this stoma is going to be. And so they just took me through some things, showed me some literature and things like this. So a stoma, if anybody doesn't know, is the part of the intestine that protrudes from the abdominal wall. Mine protrudes. I had an ileostomy. Some of them sit more flush with like a total colectomy and that kind of thing. They sit on the other side, I believe, as well. So they drew this circle, just very casual at the time, not thinking this is going to change. This is going to be different for the rest of my life. It's not going to be the same. Give you your socks and your gown. Have a good wash. We'll see you in the morning. Go down there and they put you out. The next thing I know, I'm waking up on my back. It all went well. You know,
and how long did it take?
I think it was around about 4 to 6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, about 4 to 6 hours it took.
And that's under general anesthetic.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had patients in my clinic who have requested general anesthetic for certain things. I've had to say no because of their medical history. They can't take that. Their heart can't take it. You're someone who's chronically lost water and body weight, muscle mass, you name it, for years.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you were able to take 4 to 6 hours under GA for that. Were they concerned about doing that at all?
To be honest with you, I would have died if I didn't have it done.
Right. Okay.
It was an emergency situation. So
the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah. Because I was just shedding lining and that's what I was passing. It was a matter of time. I don't know specifically. Again, it could have been that I lasted another 1 or 2 weeks before it perforated and then I'm just going to be slowly poisoning my body, you know.
Yeah.
And so that it was just purely to avoid that. There was no going back at this point. There's no intervention other than this surgery, which is a big surgery.
Yeah. 4 to 6 hours is massive.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny, again, at the time, you know, you wake up, it could have been 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't know. You just wake up and then you start to feel what you feel and you can start to see them more clearly. Their voices are coming around and they're saying, what's your pain like and all this kind of stuff. Not really understanding exactly what's gone on. You know, like all this tailoring of the digestive tract that I've got left. It's not just like, oh, we'll trim that bit and pull that through and then we're done. It's kind of way more complicated, you know, and I had this 8-inch scar down my stomach now and they actually leave the tissue at the back end for option for reverse.
Okay.
A lot of people, they struggle with the mental side accepting this. And of course, that's another thing that caused me a problem down the line. But
we'll get to that today for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of the time, I've never been under GA before. Just out of curiosity for people, can you describe the feeling of when your eyes closed and then they opened? You genuinely had no recollection of time. So as far as you're concerned, it was closed, then open.
Yeah, it's funny because you even question this as a newbie and they're talking about it going into the surgery. You think that you're going to experience a bit more of this, you know, sedation. But it happens really quite quick. And so they inject it and it feels quite cool, quite cold. Yeah. And then you feel like it's like, it's quite numbing. It's quite nice. I'm relaxed. And they're talking to you about whatever and trying to relax you. Before you know it, you're just gone, you know. 2 minutes, 2 seconds, sorry, you're gone. And you're out. And then they did what they did. And it's almost, I guess you could describe it in reverse, you know, on the way out. You come to quite quickly, like waking up from sleep, except for you feel like you've been in a war. You know, you feel like you were knocked out cold. And now in multiple places there's inflammation. You're brought to, and obviously it's less blurry and the sound starts to sharpen, and then all of a sudden,
you feel the pain.
Then you start to feel pain.
Okay.
Yeah. How was your scale of 1 to 10 in terms of your pain? And you're like, 2, 4, 6. You know? Yeah.
Wow. So in terms of the surgery, can you describe what they actually did to the digestive tract? Because I don't think people even understand, well, most people won't if they're not medically qualified, but where the colon actually sits and what they've physically done to it. Is it literally just, here it is, stitch?
Yeah. So what they did really is they've cut me open at the front. Yeah. And then
vertically.
Vertically from above the belly button, probably about 2.5 inches, I would say, close to that. Quite close to sort of the pubic area down that, about 8 inches worth of scar tissue there. Now I've got, well, actually more now from the last surgery. But so they go in at the front and they've then cut the entire colon out, that all the way up to the top from the bottom, but they leave as much tissue as they can leave behind. So it turns out I had 5 centimeters of tissue that connected to the anus. So essentially you're talking about the rectum and the anus is what they left. Okay. And then it's almost like they tie it off like a balloon, the bottom end, if you like. So now it's redundant. Nothing's going through there. It's just sitting there. But the colon all the way up has been removed, all the way up to the ileum. So that's gone. And then they puncture basically your abdominal wall here and pull this ileum for me, the ileum through your abdominal wall. And it's almost like they turn it inside out and staple and glue and this kind of thing, fashion it back to your stomach. And after a certain amount of time, it just heals and is accepted by the tissue there, which is pretty remarkable how that works.
Scar tissue that's closing everything up.
Yeah, so you've got the stoma is probably about like that large, and it probably protrudes about that much, and it can change. It's strange. It kind of retracts, and like when you're relaxed, it can be like a bit larger and hangs a little bit more, and then when you're cold, it's kind of a bit like a penis. Actually,
a bit like a scrotum.
And you don't feel much there. You've got no nerve endings there, so it's not painful or anything like that. The actual stoma, it was the skin around it. Okay. So that's all it was. They took the colon out, and they've now pulled the ileum out on my right side of my abdominal wall. Okay. At the time, that just a little bit of tissue, they had 5 centimeters that connect to the anus. They just left that for potential option for reverse.
Okay. So when you woke up from that then, the next day, let's rewind for a second. When they came and told you, this is what we've got to do, there was like no choice.
Yeah.
That it was either that or potentially not waking up the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. How did you feel when you heard that?
Funnily enough, I was like, please do it now. Okay. Just do it. I feel I'm poisoned. I'm dying or something. Something's really, really bad, and it's not getting better. I remember even on this last day, I kind of took steroids and then came off steroids, and took these different steroids and came off steroids. And the bowel movements would go straight back to sort of 20, 25 times the very next day after coming off the steroids,
So nothing was actually being treated?
Nothing was happening.
Yeah.
Everything that these guys gave me didn't work at all. And the moment they came out of my system, it was like just flaring up terribly, And so, the fact that my bowel was on the way to perforation, there was no other option really. But hearing the news, it was kind of like, well, finally, this is actually, in a way, the only cure I knew of.
Wow.
To take it out, to take the problem out, and you find you don't have ulcerative colitis. In that
so it's not really a cure either, I guess. It's
you're right.
It's just let's get rid of it all.
You just take it. Yeah, exactly. You can't do that with your heart.
Turns
out the colon isn't.
Things like your colon, your teeth. It's probably about the only things that you can do that with.
It turns out they're not like vital for to live your life.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was actually welcoming it, inviting it, waiting. Yeah. I was waiting so many days just for them to come in with an answer. And it was almost like, this is the only answer in my state, because there was probably a lot of other things we could have done before, but that wasn't the advice I got. That wasn't how we went about things. I didn't gain the knowledge even independently to help myself out of this situation. But here we are, and actually, please just go ahead and do it, because the way I felt at the time, I was kind of inviting it. But and actually, when I woke up from the surgery, when I could really, you come round after a few days, they ask you, how do you feel now and things like that. And I didn't feel like I was poisoned. I felt like that threat has been removed. So that was obviously the positive thing. I'm still alive as well. It's another good thing.
Of course.
But that's about it.
And then in terms of the recovery, how long did it take? Can you talk to us about what was involved in that?
Yeah. So it was about a 12-week recovery.
Okay.
And I was probably, for a few days, not on any food or anything. I didn't eat immediately. It took about 4 days before I started to eat. I remember it was
what were they giving you?
Just hospital food off the menu, again, just ordering what I liked the sound of. What they in the beginning, they were suggesting more the softer foods. Yeah. You've got like this sweet potato and mash and these vegetable puree meals and just weird meals.
Yeah.
Shame I deleted my social media because I had all of this.
Oh, did you? That would have been amazing,
Before my YouTube channel, I kind of deleted all this stuff, but I had all the old videos of the meals that I was eating and just got some pictures now, But they encourage you, obviously, to move as much as you can while you're laying down. Move your feet, move your legs. Use your bed to sit you up and try and sit on the edge of the bed, and start doing that and then start walking. And I remember standing up was really intense just because obviously I got this vertical scar down the middle of my stomach. It felt, and even when you think you're achieving like this really good posture, you look like Quasimodo. It's really strange. You stand in the mirror, I've got it, and you look at yourself and you're just like, oh no, I haven't got it.
Yeah.
Showering, for the first time, reaching around your back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was just a little bit slow. And I was in hospital the first time for 12 days, I think it was. And then I went home. And the hardest thing about going home was to get straight into a flat bed. So that was difficult.
That doesn't come up when you need it.
So it was just slowly but surely rebuilding strength. My abdominal muscles have really taken a beating. I won't ever get that full capacity of strength back because of the nature of the surgery. I've got stoma coming through my abdominal wall. I'm not going to be able to set my personal best on my sit-ups or anything. Anything. Yeah, leg raises.
So at the end of 12 days, what was your mobility like?
It was pretty good. It was okay. Posture wasn't quite there yet. Independent enough to walk around and just not pushing myself. I was fine. Obviously, I was far away from returning to work and things like that. Like I say, the hardest thing about the days was trying to get back into my bed because I was used to raising myself up and down. That was about it. The strangest thing at first was sleep, because now on the hospital bed, you can kind of find a comfortable position on your back. But now you're in your bed, you're used to tossing, turning. I've often slept diagonally or on my front. And now doesn't really feel like an option. And so I was more restricted.
And what about the bowel movements over those 12 days?
Quite slow at first because I was eating minimal amounts of soft foods, and it was encouraged to just gradually introduce different foods, I came home with a little pamphlet just describing different foods that you might want to try, might want to avoid. Funnily enough, the only foods that they said don't eat in terms of plant foods were the ones that are gas promoting, but they don't sort of marry up why that might be. And again, it's not meat. There was never no meat on this list, or no animal products on this list of things that can cause issues.
Wow.
It's all plants, mushrooms, onions, etc., things that cause gas and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And so when in that 12 days, when you'd gotten home, did you continue that diet from before when you were able to? Grains, fiber, plants, that kind of stuff?
So the mindset in hospital was, I can't wait to get out of here so I get to go home and eat all the foods that I like and all this stuff that I was already eating that caused me the problems, not thinking that was the case. Because in my head, it's just hereditary. I was unlucky. I took all the professional advice. It didn't work. Now I've had surgery. That's worked. Now I get to go back to my life and I get to eat foods and perhaps not have issues and that kind of thing. And so, I went back and slowly but surely introduced everything that I'd always eaten. I was quite looking forward to having peanut butter on toast. I was really looking forward to going out and having a cheeseburger. I remember we went up to this sort of American style diner. It's not too far from my house, with my mum and dad and brother, sister and that. And sat down and had my first burger. And it was quite a large meal. So this was my first large meal. And, obviously there are some details that might offend people. So, but when I was eating this burger, I remember feeling this relationship between the mouth and the gut, because obviously usually it's inside.
Yeah.
And that's going on. The gurgles, the grumbles and the rumbling and all this movement, that's always going on. The moment you eat, you're now signaling the rest of your digestive tract to start to react and move.
Something's coming.
Yeah. Well, with this burger, I could feel different sensations. Because of the part of the last part of my intestine that's now through my abdominal wall, because now this is moving, your abdominal wall reacts and almost sort of spasms as a reaction of this movement. And I remember feeling that and thinking, this isn't fun. I don't like that. And I could and then you start to hear little things because it's quite a tight corner it goes round. And so sometimes with this, it's not like a normal sort of flatulent episode. It's a different sound. It can be quite high pitched and it's different things were going on. I was like, oh, this is really strange. And also because it was quite a large meal, I didn't realize, because again I don't have my colon where we would absorb water and things like that. You eat this large meal and you flush yourself out. I've got this now bag just full of liquid. It's like bile, just like this yellowy browny liquid. And so every time I ate, it's like I have to now go and go to the toilet straight away. And then this meal will slowly make its way down there, and then that's going into the bag. And I slowly discovered that certain plant foods were causing me real issues, and I developed like a love-hate relationship with food. I've always loved food.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love food?
Of course, yeah.
And I would get really hungry and then think, but what are you getting excited for? You're going to eat, and then you're just going to experience a nightmare like you always do when you eat. And my first memory of cutting out plant foods was going around my parents' house on a Sunday to have Sunday roasts. So now I'm kind of living elsewhere, and you go back to your parents' house or whatever. And now I've just got this plate of obviously some chicken and maybe some lean beef or something, Yorkshire puds and spuds, and then just an abundance of vegetables. And I remember Sundays were like my worst day. And I'm thinking, why am I having this much? Maybe I should just cut back. And so I started to not have as much. And so it was less on my plate. Then I was like, actually, it's just all this vegetables, the peas, the broccoli and stuff like that.
As in, that's what was
causing me
collecting
discomfort, obstructions, the abdominal wall spasming because the fibrous material that doesn't break down is struggling around.
Yeah.
Obviously, the gas that it promotes would fill the bag up with gas, which is not very convenient, really. Yeah. And I remember just saying, do you know, I don't think I really want broccoli today. I'll have less of that or less peas. That'll do. No more than that. I'll just have the meat and the spuds and the Yorkshires and the gravy and that's it. And so that was happening slowly but surely just through kind of going through my anecdotal experience with the bag and eating all these different foods. And I was eating everything. So I was eating, plants, grains, some processed, some fresh, some local, some not, but everything. And I was starting to develop a real love-hate relationship with food. I
can imagine.
You think, I'm done. I'm not eating today. And then you get really hungry and you want to eat. So you eat and then you're like, oh, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore, So it was a really strange relationship. But it took me a while to figure out that all these plants and vegetables were causing me the most problems.
So when you finished the surgery, can I just double check? You woke up with the bag there straight away. Yeah. Can you talk to me about what that does to your mind? Seeing this non-man-made object is now a physical part of you wherever you go. It
is pretty strange when you wake up. It is like a bit of a horror scene. Yeah. If say you've been knocked over the head and taken somewhere and you wake up and you go, where am I?
Yeah, like you wake up with an arm in a cast or something.
It's a bit like that. Yeah. It is. You feel strange when you look down, you're sort of like, what is that? What? Obviously very tender and painful at first, and I wasn't really touching it. And so they would clean and change and empty and things for me, and I'm just watching them as they do it. And it's a bit strange because, well, when you start to eat and now there's like output in there, it's not the most pleasant thing. Yeah. And you'd rather just be doing it yourself, but obviously I don't know what I'm doing. And so, straight away it affects you mentally for sure. But for me, it was the moment I got home. Because when I was in hospital, I was either ill or waiting this treatment or some kind of help, like to get me out of trouble. And then even when you wake up with a bag and you're walking around, you've got nothing but support. Everyone there is used to seeing this kind of thing and you feel like you're in the right place. You don't feel strange. But when I went home and woke up the next day, my parents went to work, my brother went to work, I'm on my own. It's just me and my thoughts in the same house that I grew up in. Everything's the same except for this. Yeah. And it just highlighted how different this thing is. And I have struggled. I've been quite neurotic as a kid, quite introspective, overanalyze things, always put myself down and berate myself. And so I've never been the best person to have like this robust mental health, Yeah. But this was like the worst thing that happened to me. And coming home and not liking the way things feel, not liking the way it looked, and it affecting my sleep. I was single at the time,
In sleep, it probably affects your physical
100%
angulation as well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, I figured out that really when I go to bed, I'm best on my back. But if I want to turn over, if you get a bit sick and tired in the middle of the night, go onto your right side because the bag is on the right side. If there is any content in there, it's supported by the bed. Rather than if I turned onto my left side, it's going to pull a little bit. I'm not actually somebody who likes to leave the bag fill up before I empty. So I'd rather just, if I'm going for a wee, and it's just, may as well. I don't like to let it fill. It's nothing worse than that. This kind of the weight, the look. And again, I've always been someone that seeks comfort. I mean, I have been a bit of a hedonist. I try not to be so much these days. But this wasn't really very compatible with my mental health because of the way I was, my personality. I put myself down enough. I didn't like my face, my skin. I'm not a very tall person, things that just knocked my confidence. This was like the worst thing. And I remember walking around almost comparing myself to other men. I would look at men more than I looked at women because I would be like, well, handsome, tall, good skin, perfect teeth, great, like must be nice. Yeah. But after this surgery, if I could have chose one thing to take away, I didn't care about that stuff anymore. Really? It was the bag. The bag is what's ruining my life now. The bag is why I'm depressed. It's why I can't sleep. It's why I find every excuse not to do this, not to do that, not to live life, not to, Yeah. And so, that this is when I first really, I believe, really knew what depression was. I thought I knew what depression was. But yeah, this was bad, like it very, very rapidly got to me and very rapidly exacerbated just the state that my mental health was in. This is the whole reason why I went carnivore.
So when you got home, how long before the D word, depression, came into
Very next morning. Really, pretty much when I woke up, I think I freshened up, I sorted myself out, I then walked downstairs to just live my day.
Yeah.
And it was the quiet. And then the loudness of me in the background. And this obvious thing that changed.
Silence, I think they call it.
Yeah. Just horrible. And it's funny because the moment you feel like that, your mum and dad are happy that you're back home, and people that care about you, even certain friends and things like that, they're happy that you're home and that you're okay. But it's quite difficult to then, I don't know, to reflect that back, almost in a considerate way. In a considerate way, I had to put on fake smiles, and just sometimes I even thought, like, wow, just wipe that off your face, that you can't look like that. You know what I mean? Like your expression, your body language.
You almost feel like you owe people a smile for the effort that they have taken to be happy for you.
Yes, exactly. I felt guilty. You feel guilty otherwise. It's very strange. I think I've obviously been quite an empathetic person.
Yeah, of course.
But it doesn't help you, I was trying to, like I say, appear like I was okay.
Yeah.
Happy to be back, happy to be alive. Yeah. I'm supposed to be happy to be alive.
Yeah.
Because of the doctors, what they did, and my mum and dad and what they've done for me. It's not like they're short of doing things for me, and the support and love.
Yeah.
Even friends and the support. It's not like that wasn't a beautiful thing. It's not like that isn't very much appreciated. But
there's a elephant in the room.
You can't run from yourself. Like wherever I go, there I am. There's my thoughts. They're the same.
Yeah.
And it just got worse and worse to the point where I felt like I was just, I don't know if you ever watched Dexter.
Yeah, I have, I
was just pretending all the time, everywhere, all the time. Just pretend. Let's just keep up appearances. You can't look like that now. You can't say that. Don't say what you think. Just push it down.
Yeah.
Shut it down.
Yeah. I mean, I dread to think what that has. I will touch on it because obviously you went carnivore and things change, but I want to talk about a little bit the actual physical bag itself. Can you give us an idea of how big it is? Like with your hands, can you just
show you if you want?
If you're happy to, yeah. If you just look at that camera over there.
Yeah, it's not very offensive.
No, go for it, please. If you're happy to. Okay.
So it's not very offensive. You can't see much. I mean, if I open that, you've got a peek window.
Okay.
And so you can kind of check.
Yeah.
Which is what they did often in the beginning. They just have a little check, and the nurses come around and check and stuff like that.
And so in terms of the actual connection, what do you have to do to keep that clean with the actual contact with the skin?
Yeah, so what it is before it's on the body, and I change this once or twice a day, before it's on the body, it's basically just a flat bag, and you can either cut the back out to the size of your stoma, or the company I use, they cut it to size.
Okay.
And so what you're looking at is this sticky back circle on the back of it with a little hole. And so what you do is you peel off the sticky, and then you would put it over your stoma and then fasten it and just keep your hands on there. And
it's just an adhesive that seals it around.
Yeah, and this thing's waterproof, and it's not like I can ever take it off because there's no muscular control. It works with gravity, and it works with obviously just timing of when you ate and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, waterproof. I shower in it, sleep in it. You can't ever have it off because otherwise you're just going to be dripping.
Okay.
Essentially.
Sure. Even if you've fasted?
It's funny because I did fast a little while ago for 5 days, and what happens is it's very, very slow, the output, and the output obviously isn't food, but it's just, I think, what your body creates in the way of like lubrication and bile and things like that that's not being utilized. It just comes out.
Movement.
Yeah, and it's actually, it's like a very yellowy brown. It looks kind of brown, but if you were then to put it on paper, it would be like this bright yellow.
Wow.
Yeah. And it just looks like bile, really.
Does it have a smell?
Nope, doesn't smell. It gets thicker and thicker. The more you fast, the thicker this gets.
Okay. Interesting.
But I mean, so basically at the end, at the bottom, like I said, you can open this up like that,
That's how you empty it.
And you empty.
Yeah.
I'm very particular about it. I don't know. I use wet wipes for that. So
okay.
I would kind of open it up, empty it, and wipe it out with some dry and then some white, and then put it back in a way that I'm very happy, because it's, I don't know,
sterility.
I'm just particular about it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. What about pain? Any pain from when you maybe drying yourself with a towel and you accidentally catch it or anything like that?
No. I mean, I've accidentally opened the fridge door on my stoma with the bag, but obviously it's been in a state where it's protruded and it's kind of, makes you think, not very nice, but it's not very painful. You don't feel, there's no nerve endings in the actual ileum that's protruding.
Sure.
It would be more around the skin. And I think if you didn't cut the bag to size and you didn't change that day, it might sting around the skin maybe.
Yeah.
But like I say, I'm pretty particular, and that's the only thing that you were asking about is the cleanliness side of things. You're not really supposed to use any kind of products because the sticky won't stick.
Okay.
So every now and again I will shower without it on, and usually you get a good idea when you've got a window of time to be able to do that. Dry yourself, change, and then you're sorted. But usually I shower with this on, and when I'm changing is when I will wipe and clean around the stoma. That just means, these dry wipes that are they're all on prescription, and I'm
sterile, etc.
Yeah, and they're also lymph free as well. So because it would stick,
little piece of fabric and things.
Yeah, it would always produce this fluid. Like your mouth would. If you just open your mouth, you're going to start to dribble. So it's kind of like that, the actual stoma itself. But all you're really doing is just cleaning the stuff off, the output, and just around the skin, just with a warm water or something. That's it. Fashion the bag over it and it's fine. And the skin looks very healthy.
And how often do you find yourself needing a replacement?
I just change the bag every day. Yeah. I change it every
once
day.
A day.
Yeah. Some people might not. I'm trying to think the reasons why I didn't. I had some issues, skin issue a little bit. And I actually decided to not change so much. It's tricky sometimes because you want to keep it clean, but you also don't want to over irritate. And that kind of thing.
Disturb the tissues, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, up until not too long ago, it was perfect. We could probably get into why I think that skin condition happened. But
so when you had that, obviously we talked about what it did to you mentally, which I think is huge and really, really big. And I'm sure people maybe watching this, if they're going to have a similar surgery, what about your day-to-day routine? You said that in the shower, obviously, sometimes it changes the way what you do after shower. You got to reattach it and everything. And you mentioned sleep as well. What about things like just day to day? Go to the supermarket. Coming to see me today. What do you have to do differently that you didn't have to do before?
So before, I was just in control. Unless I was flaring, of course, then that's a bit of a problem. Now you're kind of, your confidence has been knocked. You might not want to go too far. You prepare yourself and things like that.
Yeah.
This is totally different. Now, say I was even flaring with the bag, it wouldn't be so much of a problem because I don't need to go find a toilet. I have a bag. Yeah. So in that sense, there is convenience to that. But at the same time, I can't just leave the house and go for a walk or come and see you. If I've got to travel far, I will fast essentially. So I will use fasting as a tool sometimes if I've got to travel somewhere or if I've got to go to a place and I'm not too sure if I've got access to toilets and things like that.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The other thing in the beginning for me really was the aesthetics of it, how it looked. And so I started to purchase more baggier clothing and shirts and things like that would, like I'm wearing today, funnily enough, but down the middle, because you get that kind of breaking and the pattern in the shirt, you don't see it so much. But if I was to wear just like a tight white T-shirt, everyone's going to see that, and so I was quite aware of how I looked at first. I thought it was a bit strange, and obviously I'm thinking about it all the time. Yeah. Most other people, they don't, when they see you, just look straight down to your stomach. What is that? Yeah. So again, a little bit too much in my head about things, but I was quite affected by how it looked, and so I kind of kitted out a new wardrobe. Baggier stuff, darker stuff, things with a pattern. Yeah. That just throw your eyes so you can't see it so much. Yeah. That's one thing. Another thing is being intimate. Yeah. So with my partner Lucy, obviously I met her while I had the bag, and it's strange because I met her. I was depressed, but this had gone up and down, and this wasn't the worst of it. And actually, and it almost sounds ungrateful, you know. I've even spoken to her about this and she understands completely. But obviously I became most depressed after we were together. And it was a number of years that passed. But being intimate before meeting her, I had no clue how that was going to go. Because in my mind, I was thinking, well, I can approach a young female and offer to have coffee or lunch.
Yeah.
But at some point, I'm going to have to talk about this.
Yeah.
And that kind of held me back. I was quite afraid to talk about how am I going to go about talking about this?
What words do I use?
Yeah. How do you, like, when's the right place? It almost always seems weird and like inappropriate, you know? How do you bring that up? Yeah. And so I thought, well, maybe I've got a better chance with someone who's a bit more mature, you know, and this kind of thing. Well, being a window cleaner, I was going round and around cleaning the same customers' windows, and Lucy was one of my customers.
No way.
And so we just built up a rapport and we would talk. And as I actually brought this up quite comfortably, because we were comfortable in talking, I just brought it up. And she said, oh, that's interesting. My sister's husband, I think at the time they weren't married, but my sister's husband has one of them. And so she knew about it. She'd been on a holiday to Portugal where they got their own private villa. I didn't understand that was why at the time that they had this private little villa. So it was kind of discreet. So Ross, his name is, he could be comfortable about going swimming and this kind of thing. Yeah. And so she'd seen it. She'd known about it. She wasn't offended, you know, and I think in some ways women, you know, good women like that, they aren't really offended by things like that. It doesn't bother them too much, you know. Sure. My skin still bothers me far more than it would ever bother Lucy. Yeah. And that kind of thing. Sure. And so that actually gave me strength in the beginning, sharing that with her and her understanding. And then obviously when we got closer, that gave me confidence. But obviously with depression and things like that, I don't think anybody's ever safe, and these things come and go. And it was almost like it was being suppressed or something, and eating the same foods that I was eating because I wasn't carnivore yet. You know, this stuff just came back to haunt me. Okay. But, it affects the intimacy type of side of things. And so when this first happened, I was a bit worried, and it was almost like I just wanted to get it done to get this hurdle out of the way, because I didn't want to just be afraid of this thing all the time, you know. Yeah. But turns out it's no problem. Yeah. Again, where I showed you the bag, if I undo this bottom bit and there's a little bit at the top with another bit of Velcro, and you can pull that, and so it pulls it up. Oh, so it kind of curls up almost. Right. So that is literally for intimate moments. So you can actually get it out of the way so it's higher up. Yeah. Up here. Yeah. And again, it's not like you're really just like looking like that, you know. And I think actually because we really liked each other, the biology just took over, and it was great. No one really cared. No problem whatsoever. Yeah. And so that's another thing, obviously, when you're on your own in your thoughts and you're single and you don't feel right in your mental health, of course, you're going to be terrified of that kind of thing. Yeah. But actually, it's not a problem at all. But I would say that it obviously does affect intimacy. I have to empty or change before I'm intimate. I have to empty or change before I sleep. I have to empty or change before I leave the house. Yeah. And, you know, if I was to take a trip where I'm going to the airport and I'm catching a plane, I'm doing all this stuff. Obviously, there's toilets along the way. But I don't really like to use toilets all the time. I don't like to use public toilets or the little toilet in the plane, you know, and so I just fast for convenience. Yeah. So it affects everything. Honestly, I always say that I have to ask my bag permission to do anything. Yeah. It's the boss now, unfortunately. It's almost like, let's say you got a dog or a child or something like that. You can't do anything the same way ever again. Exactly. It sounds like you kind of exactly similar type of mentality. It's a responsibility at the end of the day, but it is also my lifeline. And so I have to remind myself of that because it can be a pain. Yeah. And when I was depressed, again, you know, feel free to take this out. Yeah. No, we'll keep it in. This is very honest. So when I was really depressed, and I was very reactive, became quite an angry depressed. Oh wow, I could share all sorts of things that I haven't really even shared. Whatever you're comfortable with. Oh, I used to hit myself across the chin. And just with your hand? Fist. Right. Bad. I've nearly knocked myself out. Wow. I remember I nearly like fell into the bed in the bedroom. Yeah. Like again, I can laugh about it now, you know, but I used to hit myself in the face anytime something went wrong, or if I made a mistake. It got to the point that even if I just went to pick up a glass and knock the glass over, I would just smack myself
Really?
Like hold myself responsible for absolutely everything. It was a control issue. I couldn't control what happened to me. I couldn't control the fact that now yes, it's my lifeline. It's why I'm alive. I'm supposed to be grateful, but I'm angry and I'm depressed and I'm just trapped and stuck. I just developed more and more control issues, and I would just hold myself responsible for absolutely everything. I've even got to the point where I've whacked with a bag on.
Really?
Whacked. Almost like I wanted to just destroy it, like blaming it. I almost used to blame it like it was...
Yeah.
You know how you almost like you need something to blame.
Yeah, a scapegoat.
It was like it became this. Like this was even though it's my lifeline. This is my problem. You horrible thing, like doing this to me. Yeah. And I've whacked it so hard, and I've taken the bag. I was just blood, just like where I've obviously it's like maybe come away a little bit, the tissue from the side. And sometimes you do these things in the moment, and then you calm down. You think, Lee, what are you doing? You can't do that. What if that breaks you? What are you doing? You know,
what have you got left?
Don't want to go back to hospital and have another surgery. But this was the state I was in trying to cope with accepting this and everything around me, my life, my outlook, the lens I had. And it's tricky. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to accept. And I don't know whether I ever will fully 100% accept it, because though my mental health is much more robust and I'm grateful to be alive, so I look at it in a different way now. It's hard to not be a little bit bitter because I feel like I've been failed. Yeah. Not intentionally.
I can understand. Yeah. I can understand. Just got a little question about, you said your relative, well, now relative-ish, who had the villa in Portugal and they could go swimming. Does the chlorine not affect the connection with the adhesive?
I don't think so. Okay. I don't think so. I've personally never been into a swimming pool. Yeah. I've only been in the shower in terms of getting it wet, and they are very waterproof. And it's very, very difficult to put. Another thing I've done when I'm angry is try to rip the thing off, and you can't do that, and that hurts as well because it didn't come off.
God.
Yeah. Madness. It's embarrassing when I reflect back the way I was and how I was behaving and stuff like that. But
how long did that go on for? When you felt those ways, you acted out in those ways?
Constant. It was minor in the beginning again, but it just more and more and more. And Lucy watched me. You know, every now and again, Lucy would catch me. And she'd know, just keep quiet, just get out of his way. It'll calm down in a minute and probably feel stupid, which I did. It's embarrassing because it's almost like you just acted like a child, and at the time you can't see it, but when you calm down and reason comes back, you reflect, and you're just like, how I couldn't even watch that video. If there was video footage of me doing that, I wouldn't want to watch that. Yeah, you know.
I can imagine. So let's take it back to you're at your parents' house, having your Sunday dinner, and one day you said, I'm going to hold the broccoli and the peas and whatever. How did that day when you decided to do that, what was different in the bag?
Well, less plants for a start, less colours and things like that. Yeah. But what I realised is that I wasn't aware when food was emptying into the bag. So before, like I described, when I was eating that burger with all the relish and the tomatoes and the onions that was in the burger, the seeds on the bun, even the starch, this stuff, where it doesn't break down, it's horrible. It's this robust material that's kind of trying to kink round this corner, and now my abdominals are moving, and now I'm aware, right, here we go, meals processing. That all went away. So just the feeling of it, I'm not aware of it, you know. You know, when you damage your thumb or something, you realise how much you use your thumb or anything, any part of the body. We shouldn't be aware of these things, but every day before you damage your thumb, you never thought about your thumb.
You took it for granted.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. Well, now I get all this relief. I don't have to eat. But it was funny because now I'm like, well, I've solved that issue, kind of. I don't have to eat the peas, the carrots, the broccoli, the stuff that caused all the issues. I even started to realise that starch wasn't as much of an issue, but it really made a meal out of it, you know, because it was so...
no comments.
It was just so thick that it would almost do the same thing. And so eventually I started to cut back and have just chicken, Yorkshires and gravy. And that's all I had. That was my Sunday roast. Yeah. But when I did that, sensations...
Can I just say, by the way, if you don't know what a Yorkshire is, it's Yorkshire pudding, which is like a type of bread thing that we have in Yorkshire in England, and a lot of people watch this in the US, so they won't have a clue what you're on about, but carry on.
It's lovely with gravy all over it. But yeah, no, this stuff was softer, and really where it was mostly protein and animal meat. Fats a little bit, but not too much. And just no fiber, plant material whatsoever. Now I didn't have those sensations. And so the experience of eating a meal, it was better. I wasn't kind of like, the love-hate thing wasn't quite there. I knew what I could get around. And even at the time, if I had a takeaway, I could actually have like a chicken kebab, a pita bread, chicken, chili sauce.
Yeah.
And fine. Absolutely fine.
Really?
Even though I felt guilty because I wasn't getting all of the nutrients that I needed.
Yeah. Also, you were still of the mindset that you should have been eating.
I wasn't carnivore yet. I had no clue.
Plants, whole grains. So
I was backing off the vegetables thinking this is making my life easier, but I'm not getting the nutrients.
Yeah.
So I felt guilty for that on a Sunday. I felt guilty. You'd order whatever food and you think, I'm taking all the healthy bits out. But that's, for me, I can't live like that with the healthy bits.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. And I drank lots of juice because I liked fruits. So I was just drinking lots of juice and this kind of stuff, not knowing how bad that was, all this fructose just straight into the system, poor liver.
Wow. So how did you go from that to the word carnivore? How did that come into your head?
So I was now with Lucy in our house that we have, and very, very depressed. Even though I'd figured out certain things to solve issues with food, still really depressed, not questioning why, all of this stuff. And I had gotten to my GP again, not really wanting to take medication, but thinking, well, I can't manage. What else am I going to do? Got to GP, went through things with him. He gave me a number. It was to do with We're With You, I think is the service.
Is that like a charity or something?
It's like a... they treat mental health. It's like you call us, it's a free service and we'll sort you out kind of thing, right. and at least refer you to somewhere, then therapy, drugs, this kind of stuff. And so this was the idea. And after about 45-minute conversation, I was awaiting this other call to come back from a different sector or within the same We're With You community.
Yeah.
And I waited a few days, and then a couple of weeks went by and nothing happened, And anyway, it was like 8 weeks, and I'm sitting on the couch at home watching YouTube, and that's when I discovered Mikhaila Peterson's anecdote on the
Jordan Peterson's daughter.
Yes, and the video was called "Don't Eat This." It was on the Low Carb Down Under channel. I think it was probably the first video I ever watched on that channel. I watched lots of content on that channel now, I just sat there thinking not too much, not planning. You're not thinking like, oh right, I'll watch a YouTube channel that will give me my answer. Watched the whole video and I was just blown away because everything that she described, it's not like we're the same or we went through the same things, but she had all these autoimmune conditions and she was severely depressed. And then she started eating just red meat and all of that went away. And I was blown away. It was so profound to hear that. And I was sold on the spot. After that video, I didn't really even have to think about it. I just pretty much turned to Lucy and said, I'm doing this.
Oh, so she was there at that moment?
I was like, we're going to do this.
And what was the when you said, we're going to do it? Was she up for it?
She was happy. She was fine. Yeah, whatever. She's very supportive. And actually, she had no real complaints. And it wasn't like I said, we should do this, but she just decided to jump in with me as a supportive way of just, yeah.
And then what about your parents? Well, how did they, when you said, Mum, Dad, I'm just going to eat beef, what did they say?
They were fine. It was, if you think about this, so it was only 3 weeks really until the positive signs just they were so obviously abundant and clear.
That's how quick it was.
Yeah, that no one really had an issue. So anyone who cared about me was just happy about the fact that I'd found this thing, Okay. So yeah, I was taken by this video. Obviously with YouTube, we get all these videos then come up on the algorithm. So I'm now seeing BBBE and all this stuff. Well, that's what I did. The first 30 days was just a challenge. BBBE, let's find out, see if I get an answer. Turns out I did the 30-day challenge. After 3 weeks, my depression was gone. Acid reflux went overnight, which I didn't really consider a real problem. That went overnight. Acne on my back went in about a week. I'd stopped sweating and burning in the sun. This was all apparent to me on day 21 when my depression lifted, and I had to pull aside in my van and just record on my phone because I couldn't believe the way I saw the world. It was like being reborn. It was.
Is that a video on your channel, by the way?
Yeah, the very first one.
What I'll try and do is download that bit. My editor will download the video and we'll play that hit for you.
Morning. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible because I'm sure nobody's really that interested. But for me, this is hard not to share. And I'm going to try and do it without sounding preachy. I wouldn't push anything on anybody. But I just felt like it's just worth sharing because it's kind of It's unbelievable. Really.
It's a genuine moment where I'm talking to my phone in my van, which is something I would never do.
Yeah.
I would do that more so now I've got a YouTube channel for, say, an update or something that could be quite useful. But back then, it's not something that I would do. I've never just, I'm recording to reach an audience, essentially.
I remember my first time.
Right.
Felt like an idiot.
Yeah, it's a strange experience. But for some reason in that moment, it was just very natural. And it's even funny, when I look back, I'm quite similar to the way I am now. It's like it just clicked and everything went into place. My brain, it's like it woke up out of a coma that day, and someone else just like put this different lens over my eyes, and I could see
in high definition now.
Yeah, but I could see things that I'd never seen before. The inertia in people, the old version of me in other people.
So you were seeing the world with a completely different attitude, mental health,
100%.
Clarity.
Yeah.
And talk to me about that transition then. So was it from day one you thought, I'm eating nothing but strip loin?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, but obviously I was desperate and I guess a bit impatient, and I thought...
So you did do that? It was pretty much overnight?
It was overnight, but it was BBBE. So we went to the store and we just basically stocked up on things so that we could do this for a long enough time.
Yeah. By the way, just explain to the viewers what BBBE is.
Right. So BBBE is a beef, butter and bacon and egg diet, essentially. So at least it sounded like there was variety there. And obviously with eggs, bacon, beef, butter, you've got your cooking fats, you've got your breakfast with eggs and bacon, you got perhaps steak and eggs. It just sounded like that's cool. I could do that. Yeah. It does sound restricting when you're coming from like this, eat everything balanced, everything in moderation,
typical
style
Western
of diet. Then of course it's going to sound a bit restricting, a little bit extreme. And I remember actually when I started eating these meals, they just looked like, they didn't look complete because of what I was used to, but just red and yellow and like where's all the green and the orange and stuff like that. But we jumped straight in, and now I obviously feel a little bit guilty because I kind of did that to Lucy, and we did have a little bit of a struggle for the first 2 weeks. Yeah. She started to introduce cheese quite quickly, I think, and then olives after 30 days and things like that. So then she went like keto, I suppose, avocados and higher fat vegetables. She did quite well, actually. She ended up losing, I'm trying to remember the exact amount now. It was a lot of weight. I've got a before and after picture on my channel on one of the videos, actually. But it was unexpected. We weren't even thinking about treating Lucy. But she sort of resolved her blood glucose issue. She was pre-diabetic like all her life since, having Sky, a child. Yeah. And she felt incredible, really, considering she didn't even really suffer. Yeah. And for me, obviously, same thing, very quick transition, which isn't a good idea. Yeah. But I would say I probably got away with it. Like I spoke to Bart Kay about this the other day. I didn't have a gut. So I didn't have that biome like people do or to the extent, right, where they switch overnight and now, wow, this is extreme. You're going to have some issues and all that kind of stuff. I just struggled for energy, maybe for 2 weeks where I wasn't used to consuming fats and I was always consuming carbohydrates over and over throughout the day. So there weren't
any like excessive bathroom trips or pain in the bathroom or anything like that?
It was hard to tell really because I've got a bag and everything. No, not really. It was much the same, it was much the same. And I suppose when you have an ostomy, because I don't have a colon, you are encouraged to salt your food. And so I was naturally salting my food. And it was just this transition of glucose metabolism to ketone metabolism, which was the only issue I think that I really felt that lasted about 2 weeks. It started to get better and better. And by 3 weeks, literally smack bang on day 21, everything just falling into place. My energy was off the charts.
Wow. And it was really just the energy that was a little bit low. In the transition
usually, period. Well, I mean, usually my energy, I suppose I never really questioned it until quite recently, but my energy wasn't great before because it was constantly up and down. I think that's why my moods were up and down. I think that's why my mental health was all over the place. It kind of all correlated with what I was doing, dietary, Yeah. 3, 4, 5 times a day, up and down with glucose and then crashing and all this. And I think that's probably what my moods were doing and my mental health and all that kind of stuff. But so once I past the first 2 weeks, I felt like, okay, I'm getting better. I wasn't struggling upstairs at the end of the day, like at half an hour to an hour earlier, thinking I'm ready for bed. Yeah. I'm shattered.
And that was normal.
Yeah. Sorry. Do you mean on the previous diet?
Yeah.
No, not so much because I would just snack snack again, and to avoid a crash, or after a crash, you just snack. Yeah. This was like the first 2 weeks on Carnivore, so where I wasn't able to perhaps get the fats in. I wasn't able to utilize maybe the fats because of the lack of bowel and stuff like this, maybe. I don't know. But I just remember feeling quite tired half an hour to an hour earlier than normal for those first 2 weeks. Yeah. But after that turned around, I started to get a bit more confidence. I thought, well, I can keep doing this thing. I was going to see it out anyway. I'm pretty stubborn like that.
I mean, that's a pretty easy transition, I think. If that's the worst you had.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And so what were you thinking as you were doing? Were you thinking, this might be harming me, but I'm going to do it anyway? Or I don't care, I've got nothing left to lose, let's just eat.
So in that first 3 weeks, up until I made that, like sort of recording my testimony, I was also learning quite a bit. More videos were pouring themselves in.
Learning about the diet and things.
Exactly, yeah. And so now I'm getting some answers to things that I'm worried about. What about vitamin C? It's a cliche on Carnivore. What about vitamin C? What about the fibre? What about certain nutrients? And I was learning more and more and more. And actually, even in that video where I'm just recording in the van, I actually learned quite a bit, just even in those first 3 weeks, because I was so interested, because I was perhaps concerned about certain things. But yeah, no, it was great. I started almost by education for the first time, learning things that are not just misinformation or disinformation or these silly lies or the dietary guidelines that so many people put so much worth into. All this stuff that's wrong,
That's a very good point about the guidelines. As you were eating the BBBE and you were feeling better, apart from obviously the transition period when you had a bit less energy, what did you think of the guidelines? Because you must be thinking, why was I told to eat the opposite of this for so long?
You're eating the smallest portion, the bit that you're not supposed to prioritize. I mean, everything was flooding in, like all this new information. And so it's kind of confusing at first. Like at first you look at your plate, you think, that can't be right. Yeah. The next day you go, okay, you accept it more and more. Then you learn something. You think, oh, well then that's fine then. So I've only got a few questions, and then you start to learn more and more. I think one of the first videos, like the longer videos that I watched, was Nina Teicholz on the food guidelines and the villainization of saturated fats, Ansel Keys, and the history behind Ansel Keys and his 7-country study. Sorry, it was just pure fraud. Yeah. All this kind of stuff, and the paper that came out in 2016, the JAMA paper, Internal Medicine, with the Harvard professors that were paid sort of $6,500, which is equivalent of over $50,000 of today's money. So basically say sugar's the thing that's fine. It's cholesterol that's the issue. And that's what's in the arteries. Cholesterol bad, sugar's fine. Yeah. And so when you start to learn all this stuff, and this is the journey that I was on, and it was quite a, Were
you angry? Or happy that you found this?
It's a necessary and tough pill to swallow, the red pill, isn't it? Let's face it.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, it's just very mixed. And so again, like I'm quite bitter about this, but wait, that they said this, and everything that they said is the opposite. And then you start to learn about fiber and the plant proteins and gut health and the meaningful information that's actually out there. And you think, wow, I've been failed. But again, try not to take it too personally, because these people, they're trying to help. Yeah. They're family physicians and they see their patients and they probably care. But I have thought over and over again, with these patients that you've seen numerous times, as a doctor, have you never questioned why they keep coming back? Yeah. Why
has no one cured their problem?
Why is it that you haven't helped them yet? You haven't begun to help them yet. Yeah. And so it's just an eye-opener, like I say, a tough pill to swallow, but absolutely necessary. And it's, it's tricky to see. And the hardest thing to see, I think, is all these young children and these innocent people
falling for it.
Yeah. And it's funny because you look at it in a different way. You forget how much I've learned. I'm not saying I'm really knowledgeable and I know all this stuff, but I had to unlearn so much stuff that the average person, they're still walking around with what they think is knowledge on nutrition, what we should eat, a species appropriate diet. People we never questioned, things like that. I'd never questioned, we're a species. Every species is designed to eat certain substrates, and they're very restricted. They're not a little bit of everything. You don't see cows going, I've only eaten grass today. I need some orange, or I need some sweet potatoes, or where's my protein? They get everything they need from grass. Yeah. Because of their metabolism. So
that's the way they've evolved.
Exactly. And so we've evolved, and we have a unique metabolism, and we have our own setup. And there are things that we can digest and absorb, nutrients, and there's things that we can't. And people can talk about how nutrient-dense fruits and vegetables are, how necessary they are, but at the end of the day, there is no such thing as an essential plant carbohydrate, fiber, or polyphenol.
100%.
Zero.
Off camera, me and Lee were talking on the way here. I was teaching yesterday, like I said, and I had a lot of doctors who were watching me do a demonstration consultation for longevity, and there was a vegan. Now it was a vegan who would listen to other things, and she was talking about a balanced diet and how she wants to be natural by eating a balanced diet. And I said to her, okay, I won't say her name, but I said, look, I'm going to ask you a question, and this is for you and everyone else in the room, or the audience that were watching me and taking notes. And the question I said to everyone watching and this patient was, name me one animal that has ever existed on Earth or that exists now that eats lots of different things in a balanced diet instead of the same thing every day. And the light bulb switched. By the end of that appointment, that vegan said, I'm going to start eating meat now.
Yeah.
And it worked. And for me, that is a really good example of what you just said. Someone unlearning. I think it's just as hard to unlearn.
Harder.
Yeah. I couldn't than to learn, because you've got to accept that you've been wrong, or that you've wasted your time. And I don't know whether you would agree, but I think that's one of the problems that vegans struggle to get through to go carnivore.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a carnivore go vegan.
No, me neither.
I've only ever seen vegans go carnivore that don't want to go back.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's often the last step.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's funny because when we say balance, it's not that when we're saying balance isn't important. Balance is immensely important in life.
All your nutrients.
Exactly. But the balance is found within fatty red meat and eggs and some fatty fish, maybe some butter. There is your balance there. If you ate, for example, I know not quite literally, but nose to tail beef or lamb or something, you've just eaten the perfectly balanced diet, the most perfect balanced diet you can have.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of balancing out a diet, if you're a vegan diet and you add meat, you're balancing it out, but you're not eating a balanced diet. And if you're eating a balanced diet, everything in moderation, all colors, all food groups represented, you are offsetting balance, because every single plant contains fiber, sugar, anti-nutrients, all of which deplete nutrients.
They're all defense mechanisms. I think Anthony Chaffee obviously talks about this a lot, and I think he's correct.
Yeah.
Talk to me about when you had that 21 days to lift the depression. Can you give me an idea of how that slowly got better and better and better until that eureka moment where you pulled the van over?
Yeah.
Hopefully by this point, the editor's put in that video of you talking to the camera.
So the first day was actually a breeze, because I think that we could all fast for one day, or we could all switch diets for one day, and we wouldn't really pay for it too much. So I wasn't really struggling for energy and things like that. And I immediately noticed come sort of the evening time when I'd usually get my GERD or whatever, that gone. It wasn't there. And so I thought, wow, that's
reflux,
interesting.
if you don't know what that is.
Yeah. So that was handy. It wasn't, again, background, not a problem. I was trying to address my depression, not acid reflux, big deal, right? But that went. And so
in one day.
I haven't had a single symptom of acid reflux in 2 years.
Wow.
So, and I was taking Gaviscon, a lot. Like Ren, anything I could find. Sometimes when it was really, really bad. And it would always be after grains, by the way. I think grains are the biggest culprit of acid reflux, is my opinion. But going forward, I thought I'm getting some severe cravings. Sugar. I found out that I was a sugar addict. I know some people don't like to have that term put out there.
I was
sugar, addict. But I was addicted to sugar, no doubt. I mean, the moment you come off it for after a day or something like that, you're just getting these intense callings from the fridge. And I was even getting these strange sensations, it was almost like a, what do you call it? Deja vu almost. But it was like a mental deja vu. It wasn't something that I saw that triggered it. And it would take me back to a food that I ate when I was a child I hadn't even thought about for years.
Wow.
I was getting all these strange cravings, flavors and things would pop up like I just had it in my mouth. Or I smelled it was right under my
tongue has a memory, I think.
Yeah. It's incredible. These strange sensations I was getting. I was like, that's so strange. I would say to Luce, I've just thought about something that I forgot even existed. And I'm getting all these cravings. I was craving really random things, licorice.
Yeah.
Just random things. But it was always going to be a carbohydrate or sugar of some sort,
I had the same thing.
Yeah. This went on obviously for some time but got better. And actually I would say that the cravings didn't completely go for about 4 months. It took about 4 months for me to get to the point where I couldn't care less about seeing someone else eat something that I used to enjoy, a sweet coffee, or that, you walk into a station, they've got some pastry in the coffee and that smell, different desserts that maybe Sky would still have, Lucy would still have. And I think, it's quite nice. But after a while, I just don't care. And they would actually still apologize, or my mum and dad would have, oh, sorry, I shouldn't be eating this around you. And I don't care. It's fine.
Yeah, same.
know, and so that probably took 4 months. But within these even 3 weeks, it was a nightmare. There was no doubt about it. I was getting all these carb cravings, thinking about the refrigerator, and even drinking alcohol as well. I gave that up a little. So when I got off the phone, it's probably worth mentioning, when I got off the phone with the people from We're With You, they suggested that I just stop drinking. And because I was taking it very seriously, I just stopped overnight. So I quit drinking. And that was 2 months before I went carnivore, but I was still depressed. Even without the drink. And a lot of people say, oh, it's because you gave it a drink. No, I was still very depressed. And I've gone on and off of drink multiple times, and that's never really resolved anything for me. Obviously, alcohol's not good. I'm not saying it's fine in the diet or out the diet. But, or I suppose you could ask my doctor, couldn't you? Whether he recommends
the one that told you to drink beer.
But anyway, no. So there was a gradual progression, and I suppose really, every day I was quite impatient because I was so desperate. I was like, do I feel any different? Because certain anecdotes I was listening to, I was like, do I feel different today? I don't think this is going to happen. Being almost quite pessimistic about it. But like I say, day 21 came. It almost came all at once. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like I felt. So after 2 weeks, I did feel like I wasn't struggling as much with energy, but my outlook was the same. The way I felt mentally was the same. My get up and go in the morning was the same. But on that day 21, totally different. Totally different. It was like Neo in the Matrix died and woke up and was reborn. Now he sees the world differently.
I haven't seen The Matrix, as sad as I am, but I know what you're talking about.
You have to watch it purely because you've gone carnivore.
Really?
You have to watch it because you've gone carnivore. I made a little funny video about that, me talking over Morpheus's voice. There's just too many things to liken carnivore to. Red pill, blue pill, living in a dream world, thinking that the truth, that what you see is real, and it's not. Because when Neo's now takes the red pill, he understands the truth, he's been reborn kind of thing, he gets plugged back into the Matrix, and then when he sees the world, he's seeing his old self in other people, and it's fascinating. It's incredible to observe, and that's what I see every day. I saw it traveling up here to London. Everyone that I probably passed, they probably don't have the first clue about nutrition, and they don't know why they struggle, why, and they're a nerd because they won't even be aware of certain stresses and inflammation in their life, things that they don't have to suffer with, because they're a nerd. They've gotten used to it. But when they go carnivore, all of a sudden those things lift. Like, people don't even know they have brain fog until they go carnivore. Agree. And all of a sudden they're like, wait, my brain works better. I'm not an academic person. I'm a window cleaner. But I was a window cleaner while I was depressed, and I didn't apply myself at school because my brain didn't want to work properly. I was probably just thinking about sugar, But now my brain works better. I'm able to retain information. Like, I bought a book. Like, what? You don't read, Lee? What's wrong with you? But this is, I've been reborn. I'm a different person. I don't get angry. I'm not as reactive. I act rather than react. I just go, well, what's wrong with that picture? And then change the thing and act, and then go, oh, it's solved. I didn't need to hit myself. I didn't need to go and hide away in a box or act like a baby and spit my dummy out on the floor and throw a tantrum. I just eat meat and get on with my life, So
you had this, would it be fair to describe it as clarity? As what you had? And not just the way you see things, but the way you solved problems and dealt with things in your life.
It's kind of like you see your old self as this pathetic little thing that couldn't cope, couldn't manage.
Brainwashed almost.
Brainwashed, 100% brainwashed, indoctrinated from day one. Everything, everything that we see, the advertising, what is being pushed, all the subliminal messages, all the subconscious that's going on. It's all based on this foundation that was never robust. It was never true. It's false. And if you think about my foundation of health, or the foundation of health for a lot of people being in their gut, you think that, it has to pass the test. You being a dentist as well. You know that when you put something in the mouth and it destroys your teeth and your gums, it ain't going to be good for anything else in the body.
100%.
It can't, if it doesn't make it past your mouth, it's not good. And if you think about what destroys teeth, sugar,
Yeah.
acid from sugar, and starch being probably one of the worst things. It's caught in your teeth. What is starch? Glucose, sugar. And so it's not good for your vascular system. It's not good for your gut. All this kind of stuff. I mean,
Jordan Peterson, Mikhaila's father, his gum disease went away when he went carnivore. Yeah. And, one of the things that got me into nutrition and doing all the things I do now in my job, I had a couple patients in my career dentally that had pretty resistant gum disease. I did all the things the textbook told me to. I did all the things that I wrote in my gum disease exams, what I said, what would you do in this patient? And I got them all right and I passed everything.
Right.
And it didn't
you got
work.
them all right.
Yeah.
You got them all right, but it's not right.
Exactly.
So if I want to speak on nutrition and have qualifications, I need to learn things that are wrong so that I can talk, so people can take me seriously. Think about that. Does that make sense? I'm a window cleaner, yet I'm talking on nutrition, but I would like to think that I'm talking along the lines of truth and sense, common sense, ancestral sense. Yeah. I'm not going to profess to know everything. And I probably will say the occasional thing wrong, but not intentional. And maybe that's still not good enough. But I think the difference is that I'm studying reality. I'm a student, but I'm studying reality, and I'm not just blue-pilled, being brainwashed.
You're not learning things so that you can write it down and then get a tick next to it.
No, exactly. That's what is that? And I'm sure, obviously, when there are, for example, mathematics, there are certain things.
That is mathematical, like you have to do it that way.
Right. But with something like nutrition, we've been lied to about that. You can't really make someone believe that 5 + 5 is 15 or something like that. Yeah. But, no one's silly enough. But we are silly enough, even though we are very advanced, we are silly enough to allow smart people to just completely brainwash us into believing something. Oh, I've learned something today. Yeah. No, you haven't. Yeah. In actual fact, now you're going to have to unlearn that and learn. So
you've learned to follow
2 or 3 times harder.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
And those patients, I'm sure some of you are wondering what happened. Those patients, or a few of the ones that I'm thinking of here, I didn't know what to do. Normally you do the gum disease, you do what's called a non-surgical therapy, where you do a certain type of technique where you actually go inside the gum, you clean everything out, and then you wait for the gum to heal and reattach and everything. Didn't work. Right. I then referred them to have surgical treatment, where you literally have a scalpel, you peel everything away, you go in with like a deep clean, etc., do all that kind of stuff in layman's terms. Referred back to me. No improvement. Yeah. 2 patients I had in my, I think it was 2 off the top of my head anyway. One day they came for their checkup. And I do the same test all the time. It's called a BBBE. You basically check the gum health, and you get numbers in terms of results. And depending on the number, you're grading what it is. And it all went down to 0, which is no gum disease. Yeah. And I thought, what have you done? And they said, I changed my diet. And they told me about this stuff. And I was a skeptic. I'm embarrassed to say I was a skeptic because it went completely against everything I was told. Yeah. It's not a balanced diet. You're having saturated fat. You're having red meat. The exact opposite. Yeah. But that was my first exposure, and that's when I got involved with the work of Dr. Weston Price.
Exactly that. And, there you go. And that's a great place to start. Yeah. Because with these discoveries, you think, well, all our ancient, all our natural people in a wild setting, if you like. Yeah. Those people don't have problems. They got beautiful jaws and teeth and all this stuff.
All straight teeth, but without the races or anything.
Fat and protein. Well, but then it does make sense, because you think, well, if you sunk your teeth into fat and protein, your teeth aren't just going to rot like if you sunk it into a piece of starch or a donut. Right, so that's going to cause some problems. Yeah. We've done those experiments as kids. You stick a tooth in some Coke and do that with meat. You'll find the tooth there is not, it's not going to be a problem. No. So, it's just interesting, isn't 100%. It, how we can all sort of be skeptical. Yeah. Even though a lot of us, we've got a lot of potential. Our brains work very well. Yeah, it can work well. Right, it can work well. Is it going to, if you're not being sort of conned, duped and brainwashed, or if you're not eating the right foods, you're not going to be able to think. Exactly. Your autonomy sort of just isn't there. What can you talk to me a little bit about what was being emptied from the bag? Obviously, you, in those 21 days, you had the eureka moment, depression had lifted, energy came back. Mm-hmm. What would the bag say if it could speak in those 21 days? Yeah. What were you thinking before this? what on earth were you thinking? This was obviously the first moment where I had gone completely away from plants. And so even though I've alluded to shying away from certain vegetables, there was still fruits, there was still vegetables, there was still grains, plant materials here and there. Even if it's refined, there was still plant materials. But now, for the first time in my lifetime, I'm eating just meat, eggs, fish, small amount of dairy. Well, my bag, when it was emptying, when it was filling up, it was like liquid. You know, there was no texture, there was nothing recognizable in the bag. So now I'm starting to think, all right, that's kind of interesting. And actually more interesting that I've never noticed, even since having this bag, when I ate everything, all I was finding intact were plant materials. But was the...
Sorry, intact?
Yes, intact.
So it was not being digested?
Not at all. So, and again, I want to be very clear about this because a lot of people take this the wrong way. I don't have a colon, right? And where my bag starts is where my colon would begin. If I did have my colon, which I have had, I didn't know any of this stuff, which is why... So what I will say now with having the bag is not what I would have said before when I had my colon, when I was healthy and when I wasn't healthy, because what happens when food enters your colon, even if you've got all these fibrous plant materials, your body is going to reabsorb all of the water and the sodium, and it's being condensed, and the color is just all the same. And when you go for a poop, even if you looked, you might see some peas and corn and sweet, stuff like that. I think everybody has. You don't see meat. You still see some sort of evidence of the plants, but you're not going to see it to the extent that I do because it's water free. It's not the structure of it's changed and the color of it will change. And so it's not like people are going through their poo and sifting it through and go, oh, look, there's a bit of,
well, they used to do that on Channel 4 a few years ago, didn't they?
Right. But you won't find any recognizable meat.
Yeah.
You won't see, oh, that's lamb. It's just like liquid. And the way I would describe it to people is take Weetabix or something or a grain, very dry, crush it to a dust, literally a dust. Pour this dust into a bag. You could pour it into my bag. Pour water into that bag enough so that the content can't absorb all the water.
Okay.
So it's quite liquidy.
Quite saturated.
Right. That's what it all looks like. All meat, eggs, dairy, all this stuff. The colour might change if I have more dairy, but the consistency is liquid because our stomach acid being very, very low, highly acidic, 1.4 to 2, breaks this stuff down to a liquid. No problem whatsoever. It's supposed to. And we do that in less than 2 hours. Yeah. If you were to eat a meal, 2 hours later, it's liquid in your body. Now, obviously, then it goes into small intestine. We absorb the nutrients. Then it would hit the colon or hit my bag. So as it's hitting my bag, plants, for example, if I had a Sunday roast, if I was just quite keen on chowing down on it and just swallowing it, even when you think you're swallowing it thoroughly, you're not. But you chow it down, you swallow that, you're seeing the colours, you're seeing these structures. And if I were to cut, I always use the same example, if I was to cut a pyramid shape into a piece of pineapple, mango, the broccoli stem, mushroom, and just swallowed that, that will not change whatsoever as it enters your colon. That's the exact state that it's in. So we'll go down into your stomach, your small intestine, out your ileum, hits the colon in complete tact, basically. And the first time I ever experienced it in such a way, because I had seen it, and you start to think, it is strange I'm seeing all these plants, right? But when you're, being silly in the evening and you order a pizza and something and you've got mushroom on there and you're just chowing it down, you're probably not even really chewed that part of the mushroom. All of a sudden I'm having to push above my stomach to allow, because it's a problem, it's getting blocked, push this out and boom, there's a mushroom. There's the mushroom in the bag. It doesn't change, A whole mushroom. If you swallow a mushroom, that's not going to change. It will not break down. It's just like eating rubber.
You saw a mushroom go into your bag?
Baby button mushroom, yeah.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, that's how it. And at the very top of the list as well, in this little booklet that I took home, foods that might cause you problems, gas. Mushrooms are right at the top. So I always put them at the very top, and they're not like fibrous plants; they're different. But all plants are the same. So if you cut a pyramid shape into a mango, people say, "Oh, mango's not that fibrous." It's very, very fibrous.
You can see the stringy bits.
It's super fibrous. But they might say, "Oh, it's really high in soluble or insoluble." It's like it doesn't matter. All of it goes into the toilet. We don't break that down. That some creates a gel and some is just like this really robust fibrous. But both block nutrients, both cause issues with digestion, both create gas. There's nothing good about this. And if I've got a bag and I just ate loads of mushrooms and onions, I remember having an Indian takeaway right before I went carnivore. And this quite a few times, and this is almost always the case. I would wake up and put my hand in my bag, and it's just balloon full of air. It's just air, all from the mushrooms and the onions and everything that they would put into a curry. All of this stuff is so gas promoting.
You would have just farted that out, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so it's interesting. I can see what the most fibrous plants are, the things that don't break down, the things that create the most gas. It's all plants.
Yeah.
Meat doesn't create a lot of gas at all. In fact, really, the only gas that I will produce in the bag now will be through eating, taking the air down, not through not through the food being
while
digested.
you're eating or something.
Exactly. For the first time, I'm sort of thinking, this is really weird. Why have I not questioned this before? Because even before I went carnivore, I had the bag. I never found chicken. I never found pork. I never found beef. I never found lamb. I always found the plants, always.
Yeah.
And because it's quite liquidy, because my colon hasn't had the chance, because I don't have one, to reabsorb the water, you see the colours, you see the shapes. You can identify clearly. I mean, if I had a roast dinner, say today, and I saw you and just showed you through the peek window, you'd be able to tell, oh, right, so you've eaten broccoli, sweet corn. You would be able to tell me what I've eaten in terms of plants, but you wouldn't be able to tell me what I've eaten in terms of animal products.
Wow.
Because it's liquefied completely.
It's cheese as well.
Cheese,
all that kind of stuff.
It's a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
It will stodge the consistency up a little bit, but it comes out as a liquid, It's a thicker liquid, a slightly more yellowy liquid, but liquid nonetheless. We are breaking this stuff down. And the important thing to realize is that if our stomach breaks this stuff down, we absorb the nutrients. If the stomach doesn't break the stuff down, how can we really absorb? So, for example, like gluten.
Yeah. Julian, can you just knock the lights, please? Yeah, carry on, gluten.
So, I don't know if you want me to stop.
No, carry on. It's funny. People realise how little money I have.
Right. So, in terms of gluten, obviously, when it enters the stomach, we don't break the bonds of the proteins like we do animal proteins, right? All the individual amino acids that are liberated now can be uptaken in the small intestine. Yeah. I think it's only up to about a chain of 3 peptides that we can absorb at any time. You've got these complicated structures of gluten, wheat, and things like lectins that they go through the stomach the same. So now they are traveling around in a system that they don't belong in. This is what people don't understand, why grains are so bad. If fiber's so bad, if the gluten, we can't digest that stuff, then by definition, all grains not fit for a human diet. Because now if we're eating whole grain brown rice, for example, we've just eaten the fiber, we won't break down. It's not a nutrient. Yes, you're going to feed the bacteria somewhat, but with saturated fats and ketones, as we know. And so that's, we get a better version of that benefit on a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet.
Of course, and for the whole body, not just the cells there.
But if you think about then the plant proteins, gluten, well, the vast majority of people have problems with gluten. I think just because you don't have celiac disease doesn't mean that the problem, you're not getting that problem from gluten. And now this gluten structure is traveling through the small intestine. It can't be reabsorbed because it doesn't belong. Our bodies have not broken and liberated the amino acids. Now it's damaging microvilli. So now you're going to absorb less nutrients because your capacity to pull in nutrients is deteriorating because of the same protein.
Yeah.
It's going to cause potentially permeability in the gut if you're that way inclined. Yeah. And now you've set off autoimmunity.
Yeah.
And that's just a plant protein. And then there's the fiber. Then there's these other issues that can, from plants. It seems that anything that causes permeability comes from plants. You can't find a material in a cow that would destroy your colon and destroy your gut. But that's what we've been told. And so it's interesting,
It's the exact opposite,
I'm seeing the opposite. Well, the red meat couldn't possibly cause inflammation in the colon if it doesn't make the colon. Yeah. It's liquefied. It's been reabsorbed. It's now it's waste in the form of liquid. You now reabsorb the water and the sodium. Yeah. And it's just pure waste, which is minimal, which is why a lot of people think that they have constipation. Yeah. Because it takes a while for there to be enough waste for you to now get a signal, I need to go to the toilet. If you're not experiencing pain, you haven't got this,
that's quite a common thing on transitioning to carnivore, isn't it? People think they've got constipation. It's actually that they don't realize that they need to go as much.
Exactly.
And that's all, and everything's fine.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it was day one when the content of your bag looked different when you decided to go carnivore with Lucy.
Yeah, it was just liquid, easy. I'm not aware of it. It's a breeze to digest. There's very little gas. I'm emptying less. sometimes what I would do is if it's mostly air and you're not really close to the toilet, you're out and about, you can kind of just open it up, pull it up and just let the air out to the point.
Yeah. Squeeze it out almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to do that. There's never any gas in the bag taking up the capacity of the bag, which also is a nightmare when you're sleeping. You know, if this stuff is creating just this balloon, I wouldn't even want to roll over on my right because you're kind of like, well, I wouldn't want to be unconscious and potentially have an accident.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So what kind of foods have you added? Obviously, that was bacon, butter, eggs, and beef. Mm-hmm. Are you still eating just that, or have you added other things now?
I'm mostly eating red meat. So it mostly is beef, fatty beef. I do like some lamb here and there as well. I do have egg yolks, but I usually have them raw, just egg yolks. I don't have the white so much. For whatever reason, I've gone off cooked eggs. If I eat cooked eggs, something about it, my body's like, not ideal. I don't know why.
Does it look different in the bag when it comes through?
No. It's all the same. I've eaten it. So even raw meat and cooked meat, same for me. I've heard of other people in a similar situation to me that say if they really overcook their steak, that crust, that can cause some problems and that they see some remnants of that. For me, it's all the same.
Right.
You know, and I think actually if you're eating the right diet and you're getting the right nutrients, you're sodium and sodium and chloride and taurine, all these things that maximize your acidity in your stomach. Yeah. It's not like one human's going to have a herbivore style stomach acid, and no, we all have very acidic stomach acid. Certainly, if you eat the right way, and after a while, that's going to, So I don't know what that person's issue might be. Yeah. Maybe they're not fully carnivore. Maybe they're just sort of eating food and they're reporting it when they really cook their meat. I'm not sure, but it still breaks down to a liquid. It's not. You haven't got this large, robust structure or anything like that.
Do you have cheese? I know you said it kind of
every now and again.
Every
now and again, I have some cheese. More like a dessert, I suppose.
What about milk?
I've had milk. So I've had milk on and off because I had this other surgery on the cards where they left the little 5 centimetre bit of tissue that needed to be removed because it can't just stay like that. Yeah. Potentially, there could be some mutation cells, cancer, and all this kind of stuff. So up until that point, getting that removed, I have sort of strategically added milk here and there in mind of gaining a bit of weight for surgery. Right. But this got cancelled so much that I was on milk, off milk, on milk, off milk. I would say, if anything, it would make it a little faster, the output, because obviously you're drinking your food, it's already liquidized. Yeah. And maybe, if you had a steak and eggs and then you had like a glass of milk afterwards, you're probably just rushing it through your system just a little bit faster, but really animal products, it all breaks down to a liquid. I've probably, I've not eaten so much bacon. Okay.
Is that just personal taste?
It's just personal taste. Okay. Bacon started to taste too salty, interestingly, even though I'm supposed to consume probably more salt than the average person. Bacon kind of diminished a bit. Cooked eggs diminished. I just have a day where I eat fish, like a fish day, what I have often with butter or bone marrow or something like that. That's about it, but it's mostly red meat.
Okay. And then you said that you milk on and off now and again.
Yeah.
What does the different types, so you've got the skimmed, semi-skimmed, whole milk. I don't know if they call it different things in different countries, but I think they call it trimmed in some places, but did you try the different types? And if so, how did they feel to your
Not on system? Carnivore. I've only really sourced raw Jersey milk, I just believed in that really. And I suppose because I haven't got my gut and I feel like I haven't got autoimmunity, dairy is potentially an option for me. I actually feel pretty good. Okay. As long as I don't go above a threshold, I stay on sort of like 2 big glasses perhaps of milk a day. That way I'm low-grade ketosis and there's no issues there. But I've not really experienced or done any experiments with the milk post-surgery with the bag or anything like that. But I would definitely say for anyone with gut issues, autoimmunity, IBD, and you want to resolve your issues, just stay away from dairy. Okay. Really. If you've got your gut, I think stay away from dairy.
Dairy is hit or miss. Depends whether you've still got the lactase persistence, I think.
I've spoken to people down at the farm where I'll go, and some of those people had lactose intolerance, drink raw milk now and have sort of 90% less of the problems associated with that.
What's the name of the farm if people are interested?
It's called Park Farm, Edgar and Sons in Braisted. It's a lovely place and it's all grass-fed all year round.
Amazing.
They've got a little vending machine there. Yeah. Best milk on the planet, honestly. Once you start trying this milk, it's like, oh my goodness, you can never go back. Okay. Creamy. It is sweet. Yeah. But, we're talking about lactose, glucose and galactose. They are both metabolized as glucose ultimately, and we are not sort of glycating tissues in the same sense. I've also done an experiment where I've had milk and I've added just a little bit of sugar or a little bit of like a sugary coffee. It looks quite clean, but it's just got a bit of sugar in it, just a little bit. And that instantly causes me problems. Just instantly causes me problems. I don't feel quite as right. My skin's worse.
Right.
Straight away. So in my opinion, the fact that it is a whole product that way, it comes that way. Yes, there's sugar, but if you're not really over consuming it, you don't have any gut issues or autoimmunity, especially if you've got pastoral genes, you're not going to have an issue.
Okay. So how long have you, that moment when you and Lucy were watching Mikhaila Peterson, you said, we've got to do this.
Or I've got to do this and you're doing it with me, apparently.
From then till now, what kind of time frame are we talking?
Almost exactly 2 years, just over. So I would say it's probably about 2 years and 2 weeks, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in that 21-day period, obviously depression had lifted. What other things have you noticed? Positive and negative. Give us the full truth.
So like I say, first symptom was acid reflux. That went.
Yeah.
Acne on my back's gone. Obviously depression gone. So additionally, I would say, I think I have mentioned, but I don't really sweat anymore.
Okay.
I put that down to the fact that I was probably consuming way too many toxins and plants, and our skin is the biggest organ, and we sort of rid quite a lot of toxins through our skin. And I think that's obviously pretty obvious with, oxalates.
Yeah.
Even acne, if you think about what acne is,
it's autoimmune.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think because I was putting less problematic things in my system, I'm not really sort of having to rid the body of them. And for some reason, I wasn't really sweating.
Yeah.
But I think also I wasn't burning in the sun because obviously I work outside and look how pale I am. Right.
In this studio as well.
and I work outside in the sunshine. I know we don't get a lot of it in the UK, but you can look at a builder, you can look at a gardener.
Yeah.
They all have much more colour and they usually go quite red. I used to go red.
Yeah.
And the previous summer to go in Carnivore, I was sweating buckets, flustered, just red face, struggling, uncomfortable in the heat. The summer I went Carnivore, I was working with a guy called Tom, a young fellow at the time. He's still young, but he was like a baby, just about starting to drink, stuff like that. I was looking over to him and he was just sweating profusely, really, really red. It was a hot day, apparently. I don't know. I didn't really know. So I was looking and thinking, took my hat off and is it that bad? And I'm thinking, I don't really struggle in the heat anymore. And I just don't struggle in the heat. I can stand out in the sun all day. I won't burn. I don't even really get much of a tan. I get a little bit of colouring. But, I don't. And I used to wear suncream. I used to wear suncream on my nose, ears, back of the neck and all that kind of stuff.
You stopped suncream now?
Yeah, I don't use suncream. No.
And you don't burn?
No. I don't believe that we should be covering ourselves from the sun unless you're trying to balance things out with your skin, unless you're trying to treat a skin condition strategically in a specific way. Yeah. It has its uses, like everything does, right? But I don't believe that as human beings that used to roam the earth, used to live outside, it's not.
You're correct.
Why should we be scared of the sun? And I used to burn very, very easily, go red very, very easily. I went skiing once. Yeah. I actually put sun cream on and laid out, and it can be really quite warm, seeing you've got all the reflection as well. Yeah. After that day, I remember running my finger down my face, and I had this delayed reaction. Woke up the next day, blisters all on my face up here. Almost still been marked. I have almost reverse panda eyes.
I can't tell the lighting here.
I had these horrible blisters that actually set off my acne as well. I never had acne before that. And then, I'd never had it on my cheeks. I had some on my nose and my forehead, like T-zone. Yeah. And then after this holiday, it's I had horrendous acne on my cheeks, but, and they've obviously scarred and that kind of thing, but all from plants. Yeah. Because at the moment, again, the skin got better. And so that's another benefit.
When you went Carnivore, it stops.
Yeah. But I think with this whole, not burning in the sun, there's something to do with omega-3 and omega-6 ratio.
It's a lower level of inflammation, I think.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that if you look at people with psoriasis, you look at people with lots of skin conditions, they typically have a lot of seed oils, they typically have a lot of polyunsaturated fats in plants, and they increase photosensitivity. Well, when you take that out, I'm not so sensitive. Yeah. And Mr. Sensitive over here can stand out in the sun all day and not burn and not sweat. It's very interesting because sometimes I'm working flat out. Yeah. Hottest day of the year. I was on WhatsApp the other day and we had this window cleaner WhatsApp kind of thing, and some people that I know, it's took a picture registering the temperature. Yeah. And they were taking pictures and they were just all scorched, suffering, struggling. And I'm thinking right, it doesn't feel like the hottest day of the year. I just don't suffer anymore in the heat whatsoever. And I'm sure if I laid out in Vegas for 2 hours, I would be pretty badly burnt.
Do you know what? I've experienced the same thing because I go to the sauna. There's a sauna near me that I go to. I'm there. I go every other day, so 3 or 4 days a week.
Right.
I'm in there, and I've noticed over the past few weeks, months, or whatever, some people who I recognize, who sometimes are at the same time as me, they're leaving while I'm still there.
Yeah.
And sometimes someone else will come in and go while I'm still there. And I noticed also, I've never spoken to anyone about this, but I used to go in with a bit of water, not to cool me down or anything like that, but just if I really needed it, I could take some. Usually it was empty. Now, it's basically this that I take,
right,
and it's full up to about there. And now it only goes down to about there. And I'm not even thirsty.
Right.
By the sauna.
Yeah.
And I feel exactly the same thing. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But it's
a combination. It's hard to get your head around, but a combination of perhaps the omega-3 to omega-6 fats and less toxins.
Yeah.
The right nutrients, the metabolism is hunky-dory, ketones.
A lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't think we know the full list of benefits that can come from going carnivore, to be honest. I want to touch on something you said. You said you were lined up for another surgery.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that is and why that's occurring?
Yeah. So after 2017, when I had the colon removed, obviously had the bag, and they left that 5 centimetre little bit of tissue and the anus, so rectum and anus, which either would be reattached or not. And I had some conversations because obviously at first I didn't like the way this was. I did go back and forth, and it was strongly advised. We'd say you're the healthiest this way. They gave me some sort of percentages, and actually 80% of people in my situation had 10 centimetres or more, where I only had 5. And so straight away it's like, well, that's going to restrict my options a little bit, maybe the chances of a good outcome. And so it was advised against. And so I kind of made my peace with it in a sense, as much as I could. Okay, this is permanent. And at some point, they say don't leave it 10 years to get this tissue removed. I think just to be safe or on the safe side in terms of cancer and things like that.
Yeah.
So my thinking was, well, okay, it's not great, but it's not the end of the world. I've only got to remove this tiny bit of tissue. It'll be a quick in and out keyhole type of situation. Well, as I was talking to the surgeon, he was saying, unfortunately, because it's so small, it's now dangerously encroaching on the vulnerable nerve tissue pertaining to kidney and bladder function. So there's no way we would go in and do it this way. What we're going to do is we're going to cut you open again from the front. And we're going to put stents in as well in your ureters because we want to get them out of the way so we can attack the area, again, deemed in a more safe manner. And just to remove this silly little bit of tissue. And then obviously sew you back up there, sew you back up here, and then you're good to go kind of thing. And then you're done. So all of a sudden now this is a 3-month recovery again. So I feel like I'm actually healthy now because I've been carnivore. It was basically nearly 2 years. So actually, what was it? It's about a year and, I don't know, year and 9-10 months or whatever. It may be about 2 years and a month or two.
When you had this other surgery.
Yeah, so it would have been, I was carnivore like approaching 2 years kind of thing. And I was feeling great. I was healthy. I didn't have any problems. And so it was different. It wasn't like, please take, this part of my body away and please just put me on the surgical table and put me out. I wasn't really up for it. It's kind of like, it sucks that I have to get this done, but it needs must, there's no option. And so go in and same situation, anesthetic, and then before you know it, they're waking you up again. And it was different. It was just a different surgery. They went through the same cut, about 2 inches lower, but all the way down.
Right.
So now I've got about sort of 10 or 11 inches of sort of scar tissue, all the way down, and they've obviously put the stents in my ureters. I'm waking up. They're still in there. They leave those. They were actually originally going to leave the stents in for about 6 weeks.
Right.
And then I would come back after, whenever I went home, come back, and then they would remove those. Turns out, after about, 10 hours or whatever had passed, I'm having a lot of problematic issues with, I was urinating. So I thought I wasn't urinating because it was like I was absolutely busting, but I'm not going for a wee. It's really strange. And so I talked to them and they said, well, actually, you are weeing. But I kept saying that it's a real problem. Like, really, it's so severe, I don't think they believed me. And I think it was just the problems with the stents being in the ureters and the inflammation that they were causing. And they decided to take the catheter out on the first day. So now, after 20 hours of post-surgery. 20 hours later, I'm now walking unassisted just to go for a wee because I've had the catheters taken out. So I don't know. I can't imagine that was very good. But, getting up like this and standing up.
And pressure in areas.
Which is madness. Stuff, But anyway, but it didn't really resolve the problem either. So the catheter come out, but I was still busting. It was like I was busting, and I was to the point where you just pull over anywhere, even on motorway, you just pull over. It's that intense to go, and I was going for a wee, and it wouldn't take long, and it would stop, and I'm like, but I'm busting, and I was sort of kept complaining about it. They checked the capacity of my bladder, and like, so not even full at all, so it was really strange. Then they were like, right, I think we need to take the stents out. So I think this is on day 3, went down, and again, no offense to anybody, but they take your stents out through your genitals, and I had 2 of them, so they take one out. It's not very pleasant. Quite a large thing actually as well, like this. Whoa. 2 little, you see the kind of links on each end as well. You look at it, you think, what?
How does that
just come out of there? Madness. And then they go, right, going in again, take the other one out, Anyway, the moment they removed these stents, the pain was so bad. I was on my knees. So I'm quite a private person usually, but I was in so much pain. Most of the time I spent, the first part of the week on my knees with my robe just bent over a pillow on the bed. Everyone can see absolutely everything. That's how much pain I was in. It was just agony. I was getting all these spasms. I think that my body thought that it had kidney stones or something, and it was going through these phases where it was trying to flush them out. And so originally it was just the stents being there, and I think there was obviously some kind of nerve damage.
Impingement or something.
Yeah, something like that with the urination, with the pain. That was then all taken out, and now I'm just left with the pain. And basically I had the surgeon come in and say, well, I think now you've got stent syndrome. So kind of thing, like you're having these symptoms, even though they've been taken out from the inflammation, what we've done, what the irritation, your body's still going to be going through these episodes, these phases. And they were very, very, very painful, just bent over. I had sort of kidney pain, but also had pains at the front, mostly on the left side. But sometimes it would go left, right, left, right, left, right sort of thing, these spasms. I had 1 or 2 a day, and it was just horrible. My mum and dad would be in there, and Lucy would be in there, and I'm just on my knees, like trying not to make embarrassing noises, and that was kind of like the first week was dealing with that kind of thing. Sleep was a nightmare again, because wakes you up when you're busting for a wee. That wakes you up from your sleep. It's very, very difficult to go to sleep, even though my bladder, I'm being told my bladder's not full. So if that's what you're feeling, it's not a problem. You can wee and all this stuff. It just wasn't helping. And so I was taking a sedative and stuff like that to get to sleep. The back end, so obviously that was what it was all about, is removing that. This healed really, really well, very, very quickly. Back end, it was quite painful, very difficult to sit on. I didn't realise how much tissue they actually remove. So they don't just remove the rectum and anus and then just sort of fasten it back together again. They remove a great deal of tissue from both sides, and they put it back together, and you don't have as much flex, if you like, because they've kind of taken this out and they've now attached it here.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, again, no offense to anybody, but when I got home, I saw it for the first time. They kind of take it, so say that's that, like that, and they've taken all this tissue out. They take this bit and they kind of curl it back on itself like that. Okay. So if you look at it, it almost looks like a tongue coming out, but this eventually almost breaks and then until it's healed like that. And now I've got these kind of, have to be careful when you're wiping after you wash, because you can feel it's almost like webs like this, like that, that ripple across the cheeks. And I'm fine now to sit. I remember when I got home to sit down, I still had the sutures back there, so they staple it back together in between this bit like that structure that I was talking about. And it was getting worse and worse to sit down, and I couldn't understand why. And I think it was as I came off all the pain relief, where these sutures were on the nerves. I had the things taken out my genitals without anaesthetic. This was 3 times more painful.
Oh my God.
Just to sit. It was like agony. I got home and I went to sit down and just tears just poured out. I wasn't crying. It was the pain. It was so intense, It was just like, that was so bad. And I've been quite transparent on my channel about my journey with that surgery, actually, moments in the hospital. I even did a Team GB live from the bed.
Oh, did you? No way.
Yeah. So that was quite interesting.
So how long did that take to heal? Obviously, you're sitting there. I hope you're not in pain.
No, I'm not in pain, no. So It took a while, actually. That was the longest part in terms of... So when I was in hospital, I didn't eat the hospital food. I had people bring in carnivore stuff.
I have to stay on carnivore diet.
Yeah, exactly.
You put some videos up on that, actually.
I did, yeah. And so in the hospital, it was like I was getting better. I can now sit because you're trying to, you're walking. How many steps did you walk and all this kind of stuff? But then it started getting worse. I actually thought it was where my hairs were growing back because they shave.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
And now I've got this sensitive bit of tissue and all the hairs are now pricking each other and it was horrible, right?
Yeah.
And as it got worse, I'm like, but it can't be that now. It's still there. And so I had to keep going back to get the sutures removed, every other one kind of thing. That was painful. Getting the sutures removed was so painful. And I couldn't walk very well. Don't know if you know Pilgrim's Way. It's quite a large road. It's like a country road and there's different sections of Pilgrim's Way from sort of Kempston to Otford. They closed the road and I'm supposed to get my sutures removed. And it's like, it was actually a warm day as well. But I walked Pilgrim's Way from like Kempston to Otford just to get my sutures removed. And they managed to remove one. It was so painful. And she said, I can't do this. You need anaesthetic kind of thing. Went back to the hospital the same day as an outpatient, waiting for hours in the A&E section just to get the others ones removed. But they had to leave some in because they were very particular about what we have every other one removed. And then the next, I think it's so that this doesn't break too rapidly. And anyway, that was excruciating. The most pain I've ever felt. You couldn't believe. Just to try and grasp the suture and just
tease it out,
take it out. It was excruciating. I had 2 bouts of sort of morphine, which didn't really do much. I was on funny nitrous oxide.
Yeah.
And cold spray. It's so funny the way I was explaining the pain and they couldn't really get their head around it. And I was saying, I've just done this and this was a breeze compared to this. But, we're all different. But this was horrendous. But anyway, once they removed the second lot of the sutures, I could run.
Yeah, no way.
Yes,
how quickly after?
Immediately. Lucy came to pick me up. She was here. You'd be like, oh, it was the horrible day. Because she just kept looking at my face. I'd had the first half removed. I knew what I was anticipating. He looked at me, I was just like terrified, just like, can't wait for this to be over. And they couldn't give me any real pain relief. They were going to give me lidocaine.
Yeah.
But because they thought, it might be so painful because it's infected. If it's infected, we can't give you lidocaine. I don't think it was infected because the moment the sutures came out,
it was fine.
So again, it was just some bloody cold spray, laughing gas and morphine, which doesn't really address the pain, not like that.
Yeah.
Morphine kind of makes you not care so much.
So even with all those 3 things.
Most excruciating thing I've ever felt in my lifetime. Couldn't believe it. It was hard not to... When I was in the doctor the first time, the plan was to get half of them removed. She was like, I can't do this, you're in too much. I said, what if I promise not to move or make a sound? She's like, okay. I'm not going like that. I couldn't do it. That's how painful it was. I only dread to think of the levels of pain some people experience.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to be tough. I thought it was going to be fine. I've been through one surgery. I can handle this. This was bad. I would take the first surgery over this one any day.
Wow.
And I think that some people won't have as many issues if they didn't have it so chronic, because I think I had so much tissue removed and the way they did it. Because I spoke to a gentleman before I went in for my surgery who had an in and out situation from the back, and they did it all in one kind of thing, and he was fine.
Yeah.
Fine, and I think he even had dissolvable stitches, but he said for me, the way they've done it, with the amount of tissue that they cut, because my bum just went overnight. So, my bum's gone. I used to have a bit of a bubble butt. And now it's like, where's my bum? Lee's got no bum anymore, It's that much tissue's removed. And I think maybe in my situation, it was different. And so they had these robust sutures in there. There was quite a few of them as well. And it's like, they think they're taking out, there's one more. No. Can't remember. Oh, no.
And this was only a few months ago, I'm guessing.
Yeah, this was the end of April.
Yeah. It's still quite fresh on your channel, I remember.
Yeah,
being in hospital.
So it's only really been May, June, July.
Yeah. Wow. So from then till now, you're pretty much back to normal, would you say?
I can do absolutely everything that I could do previously, which was obviously just a plan.
Yeah.
I was thinking, please don't wind up with 2 bags. Please don't wind up with 2 bags.
And you don't need nothing else is planned, at least for now.
I'm done. I'm never going back.
Okay.
I will die at home alone.
Yeah.
I will never go back to the hospital ever, unless I'm in a critical condition where I've fallen off a ladder.
Yeah, something trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm never going back.
Okay.
I mean, it seems a little bit disrespectful in some ways, but I didn't even go back to my my sort of follow-up with the surgeon. I cancelled it all.
Yeah.
Not interested.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame you, to be fair. After
it's pretty traumatic, and it's tricky to have conversations with people that are clueless about nutrition. The conversations I've had, I mean, this is nothing against this surgeon. He's a lovely guy. He genuinely is a wonderful. He's got a great disposition. If you think about the nature of his job, his voice, the way he communicates, fantastic. Can't fault, right? But it's dangerous when you don't know.
He's been brainwashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very tricky. But I mean, and again, this is what he said to me over the phone. So through my pre-op, and I had 4 pre-operation assessments, go through allergies and all this sort of thing. Allergies, all plants. That's what I said, all plants. And so it's okay, all plant, right, okay, so you won't take the Ensure shake then. So we talk about the Ensure shake. You know, he goes, is this not in your head? Do you think this is all in your head? I spoke about the diet that I'm on. I spoke about how I've had amazing results with my mental health and all this kind of stuff. Is this all in your head? Are you sure this isn't in your head? All this kind of stuff. We really do recommend that you take the Ensure shake, Lee. You do need your energy. You mean, I'm fasting, but then right before you're going to pour seed oils and sugar down my neck. Like, what? Because I need my energy to lay there while you perform surgery on me. Why do I need my energy?
Yeah.
I've got all the energy that I need. I've primed for the surgery. I've got a healthy little bit of fat. I'm in ketosis. I'm in deep ketosis now, and I'm going to be even deeper. Like, why do I? You're going to take me out of that when you give me your sugar shake and the seed oils. Now the drug's going to have potentially a more severe effect because of this. You put in my body, yeah. I mean, you're going to perform surgery on me while I'm digesting seed oils and sugar. Don't really understand why you'd want to do that. And so to me, it's kind of like, wow, how much money do you get paid to not know anything about anything apart from how to remove people's anuses and colons? Like it's incredible to really understand like what is going on here.
And I was there. I've been in hospitals. I've been in head and neck surgery. I've been in maxillofacial departments doing stuff, and you just never ask about diet. It's not even in your vocabulary almost. And the 1 or 2 lectures that we get, or that I got in my 5 years of my undergraduate degree, that was it. On nutrition, and it was just repeating the food pyramid basically, and that was it. So I get it. I mean, what would you say to that surgeon now if you could chat to him, if he was here?
Subscribe to my channel.
Carnivore.
Oh goodness, what would I say? I would want to challenge. I think I would want to challenge certain things. So, for example, if I would want to know his opinion on diet, and his opinion on someone in my position with gut health, what he would prescribe, what he does himself. What do you do yourself? And then I would probably break down everything that's wrong with what he's doing, because there's no way he's doing the right thing based on what he said to me. If he knew that we get all the essential nutrients from meat, if he knew that that's what we've based our diets around since the beginning of time. It's never not been in the human diet the way we are.
Since we're in the trees.
Like why? What's the concern? How are you vilifying saturated fats and cholesterol and red meat? You're talking about colon health. I've lost my colon. I wasn't eating red meat then. Maybe some lean ground beef, maybe a burger full with all the other crap, but not just red meat. I would want to challenge that person's understanding of nutrition and beliefs. I suppose I'd have to work with what I've got, with what he's saying. Now if I think back to the doctors I first saw, it's kind of like, are you okay? Why would you recommend a beer at night? What is wrong with you exactly? Do you know what destroys the gut? It's almost everything's in that beer, apart from the fiber. But you now prescribe me fiber as well and drugs. So it's kind of like all of this concoction of things. I would just say, these plants that we eat today, they're brand new, man-made inventions, hybridized, engineered, modified, extra big, extra sweet, extra
which we would never have been evolved to thrive on. No. We can tolerate them, but that's different to thriving, I think.
It's funny because I put up a video again on my channel about all these ancient foods and stuff, and you see the wild type, the ancestors before we touch them. Almost can't recognize them, like a cucumber. It just looks like a spiky fish, like it's blowfish.
Really?
With all these needles. It's like, but now these softer, you can still see remnants sometimes on certain cucumbers where the spikes used to be.
Yeah.
And, all of these plants are just the size of them, the color of them, how sweet they are.
Yeah.
And now they're available all year round. 100%. A lot of them hybridized.
Carrots, I think, were purple or something.
Oh, carrots. Carrots are roots. Like, they're literally just roots. So if you pulled out a carrot and its roots, the carrot used to look like the root. It was just these horrible little pale, thin, very bitter, very toxic, practically inedible. You would not eat them. There's no way you could eat carrots. But now they're full of beta carotene.
Yeah.
Where did they get that color from? We've made them that way. We've produced them that way.
Yeah.
It's amazing what we've done.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not clever. I'm not saying I don't want to live in a house. I don't want to have a blanket. And, toothpaste if you really want to use it with sun cream. All this stuff, great. All this progress. But I think just be careful of all this synthetic stuff. You want to gravitate towards what's natural and not what's man-made and artificial, because that's really more like regress, in my opinion. We've gone way, way back now.
Couldn't agree more. I actually had I've come in the past few weeks, because of the type of teaching that I've done, I've had quite a few undergraduate medical students contact me about stuff on my channel. They want to learn more because they're not being taught that kind of thing. Can you just speak to them for a second? Because they are going to be learning, don't eat red meat, don't eat saturated fat, have lots of fiber, have lots of whole grains. What would you say to those medical students?
Finish your learning. Get what you need to get done to secure the position that you want in life. And then from that point onwards, take that red pill, wake up. You need to relearn and unlearn kind of thing, I think just the importance of understanding the very basics that I think a lot of us carnivores are sort of armed with now. What is a nutrient-dense food, and where do we find the essential nutrients? What form are those nutrients in? Because we've heard that we get iron and, iron from broccoli and peas, or we get vitamin A from carrots and sweet potato, that fiber feeds the gut. When actually we turn that completely upside down, it's like this, it's not even close to true. Like fiber,
we want to be. You can literally show them the truth.
As well. The real forms of the nutrients we are designed to accommodate and absorb and metabolize are all in animal products, all of them. Yes, we're most likely supposed to wean off of our mother's milk, which is an animal product full of saturated fats and cholesterol. And then we continue eating these fat abundant animal products. And if you're in the wild, I think that's a great angle to go from. Try living in the wild, or watch a survival show. Notice that when they can't catch animals, they get taken off the show.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get sick. They're literally questioning eating tree bark, by which time it's like, that's a problem. Stop. Yeah. Just don't even go there. You're going to get very, very sick. So we are carnivorous. From day one, we've based our diets around red meat and anything we can get our hands on, really. But if you think about it as opportunists, what's available all year round? Is it the animals or is it plants?
Yeah.
You might have a plant to eat that's available all year round if you're lucky. If you live in certain parts, you might be more lucky. But animals are available all year round, and animals got us through. Animals is where we get the nutrition. Animals is where we base our diets on. The other things, up to you. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it, because we make all the glucose we need. We don't need fiber to feed the gut. That's just a myth,
Yeah.
We get the same exact benefit through being in nutritional ketosis. The ketone body's a byproduct, of obviously fiber. Fine, but you don't need to experience all that gas, bloating, the lack of nutrient absorption because fiber's getting in the way of enzymatic relationship between the wall, perhaps, and fiber. Just the discomfort, exacerbation of constipation or diarrhea, because it can do both. Depends on if you're absorbing too much or too little water, this kind of stuff in your colon. Look at it from an ancestral perspective. It needs to make ancestral sense. It needs to make common sense.
It's not taught at university. I can say that firsthand.
Yeah. History is important.
Yeah.
History tells us everything we need to know, and actually when you look into the history of almost anything, feminism, war, pharmaceuticals,
the right to vote,
politics,
all these sorts of things.
Everything. We've been lied to about everything. And so it's time to start relearning, because, knowledge is power. Knowledge is the way forward. And actually, all the time we're learning the wrong things. This new generation, bless them, they're on their iPads, chowing down on grains and seed oils. And actually, they're eating glyphosate to set up their day. Every single morning, these poor kids are eating glyphosate on their cereal. I mean, I can't think of anything worse than that.
I want to also touch a little bit on that period of 2 years when one day you had bloody diarrhea and you decided not to do anything and you thought it would go away. What would you say to someone one day who has bloody diarrhea and decides it will go away? Because you've been through that now.
Yeah, it's very tricky because even if I structured the perfect sentence, I think most people are just going to go down to their GP. What I would say then, therefore, is to understand that GPs, they might be wonderful people. I'm not putting them down personally, but GPs do not understand and are not equipped to help you with your metabolic condition, because these are metabolic conditions. I believe all of these things are mostly metabolic conditions, cancer, even bipolar, all of this stuff. So when you have your symptoms, sure, symptoms first, then go down to your doctor, but you need to understand that they are trained and mandated to go, this is the solution. It's a problem. It's in your genes or whatever. We have drugs. The drugs will merely suppress and address your symptoms. And so they may work for a little bit. You might feel like there's a benefit, but you're ignoring root cause. And if anyone has any health issue, if you've just wiped and you've seen some blood, you have an issue. There's something wrong. It's not normal. Even if it's once, even if it doesn't matter, something is wrong with your diet, most likely, your diet and your lifestyle. That needs to be addressed. If you go to your doctor, he's not going to talk to you about diet. And if he does, don't listen, because most likely he's going to give you the wrong advice. Self-education, I think the importance of education is it's right up there, but it's not easy to do because most people think that they can go on Google, and I'm educating myself. Oh, look, there's a website there, or the reviews or whatever. Doctor, oh, he's a doctor or whatever. It's just understanding the importance of understanding that medical doctors are there to prescribe medications. They're essentially like legal drug dealers. This medical monopoly that we're living inside is like a drug cartel.
With a lot of commercial interests at play.
Oh, God, money from every angle. And it's worse than ever now because you've got this whole people having their hands in both sides of it. A moral hazard with I'm selling you chocolate bars filled with sugar, and I'm also going to be there to help you with the type 2 diabetes meds. That'd be Nestle. It's unbelievable. You can't make it up. How did they get away with that? It's
like a script for an Ali G film, isn't it?
Right. And they're all working together. I mean, I'm not saying they're all psychopaths, but most of them are. The ones right at the tippy top, probably won't ever see them, probably won't know their names. But these people, behind the scenes, they're very powerful. They it's like the world's running on malnutrition. From every angle. And these people are interested in money, and I understand.
It always comes back to money, I think. Always. At some point between those 2 years of having those symptoms and then seeing someone and realizing you're going to go through this, knowing that you've got to have this part of you removed, obviously it was a quick transition for you. It was overnight. I said, we've got to take it out. But for other people facing that and being, mentally distraught, what is there anything you can say to help them mentally fight what's going through as someone who's been there?
Again, very, very tricky. I would say you're not alone, number one. So don't think you're alone. Don't think that, why me? There's millions out there just like us. So you're not alone. Second of all, life isn't over. You can still live a long, healthy life. If you're about to lose your gut, the positive side is that it's not your heart or your liver or your brain, right? It's not completely vital. You can get by. And time and being pragmatic with your thoughts is essentially all you really have. But that's okay, what doesn't kill you does make you stronger. And, we're pretty incredible beings. Most people can get through this kind of thing, and I understand that most people will hope it's not a permanent situation. If accepting that can sometimes be harder. I think when you're sick, it's like a solution or even a temporary solution. Maybe you are in a position where it's quite a good idea for you to have a reverse. Maybe you've got 15 centimeters of tissue back there. It's partly a resection. You know, it wasn't in such a chronic state that they removed it all and your options are minimal. But I would just say, you know, it's about outlook. And for me, I know that I have to eat the right way to have the right outlook.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not as easy as saying, oh, you're depressed, take a walk, go for a walk, or tell a friend or share things. Like, I've done that. It doesn't work. You walk, after a while, it's over, it's done. You're back here on the same settee with the same problems, with the same diet, the same foundation of health. Like, going for a walk and sharing your problems isn't the answer.
Yeah.
And I know that with the whole mental health awareness thing, it's sort of like, share, talk to your buddy, ask your buddy how he is. Well, I could tell you firsthand that anytime anyone asked me how I was fucking great.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not great. I'm pretty bad. It doesn't get much worse. In fact, some of the things I'm thinking about, it don't get worse than that.
Yeah.
So for me, the importance of diet, and if you're struggling that much, what have you got to lose? What's the issue with it sounding restricting?
Yeah.
You know, like, it's not a big deal. That's easy. I remember for me, it was easy to go carnivore because I was in so much pain. I couldn't experience more pain. I probably could have, but you know what I mean? Like, this was a breeze. Oh, I missed some food. Big deal. I'm thinking about not being alive. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe so. I used to get home from work and freeze at the porchway.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to do. And maybe I was paralyzed because I was quite scared about what I might do.
Yeah.
So, God, you know, just, you can talk, you can share things. That's great. But I would say self-educate, you know, the importance of diet. That's your foundation, I think, your diet and lifestyle. Yeah. And everything else seems to follow.
Yeah.
You know?
Always.
I don't usually swear, by the way.
That's fine. It's fine. Like the passion. Now, this is a bit of a nervy one. There are strongly spoken, shall we say, vegans who always talk about, you've got to have the fiber, you've got to have the whole grains, you've got to have, you know, less meat, you've got to have these seed oils or whatever. How does that make you feel when you see that and you've experienced that and it destroyed your colon? It's
just a dangerous narrative. It's obviously toxic information.
Yeah.
I would say there is obviously a distinguished, sometimes it's misinformation because those people don't know better. And sometimes it's disinformation where those people are selling you a lie kind of thing. I don't believe most vegans are selling anyone lies. Some of them are because there's financial interest for whatever reason. But most of them have good intentions. They have a lot of the same intentions as carnivores, but they just do the polar opposite, you know. So if anyone thinks that fiber, and I've even had this in comments of videos, try to break it down, trying to be super clear, and then you still get, no, but fiber.
Yeah.
And it's really strange that you can't get through to some people. Those people, no one can help. They will either find it one day themselves, somehow, hopefully, or not, you know. But for anyone else who's open-minded, who's willing to actually listen to reason, fiber is non-essential. By definition, you don't ever need to consume any fiber. Fiber is a robust structure. It's basically the bone structure of plants. It's what props plants upright. This robust structure is basically sugar that doesn't break down. We don't digest. And if it's not something that you can digest, it will be inflammatory. It will cause potentially gut issues and then, you know, ripple out and cause multiple other issues. The argument really on their side, obviously other than forget ethics, obviously just talking about health, feeds our gut. You know, fiber's not for us, it's for our gut. Fair enough, true, to a point, right? So why is that then? Because I think these people need to question, what is it then about how we're feeding the gut? What is it about fiber? So once fiber reaches the gut, the organisms that reside there will partially ferment this material, which will also cause you all your gas problems and things like this, sometimes obstructions, constipation, diarrhea. But in this process of fermentation, the organisms that reside there generate short-chain fatty acids during this fermentation process. Short-chain fatty acids are saturated fats, and so which they're against. So it's straight away a contradiction because when we're talking about saturated fats and now ketones, not sugar or fiber or plant materials. So Short-chain fatty acids are generated, and then those have to be converted into ketones first before nourishing the cells that line the colon, the colonocytes. It's ketones now, not sugar, right? Not carbohydrates of any sort. And so if it's ketones and we're in nutritional ketosis on either a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet, we are getting the exact same benefits. So I understand to people hearing from an individual saying, I only eat red meat. Sounds like you're going to have a vitamin C deficiency. Sounds like you're going to have a colon problem. Sounds like you might have CVD, CHD, or cancer down the line with this. It's terrible. Where's the fiber? It's just going to get stuck somewhere. It doesn't get stuck anywhere. It was turned into liquid 2 hours after you finished eating it. Now you're nourishing yourself, right, with the best food. It's like an all-in-one stop. What other food? I can't think of, well, every edible plant in one bowl doesn't do what just a piece of fatty red meat does. You know, you've absorbed all the nutrients, and yes, you might come in and out of ketosis with the protein. It's not a problem. You are going to be benefiting from ketones circulating in your blood. These same ketones that nourish your gut, nourish the cells in the gut from fiber, though you are nourishing all of the cells rather than just the ones that come in contact with the fiber, and vice versa kind of thing. And so if I could go back and say, well, look, you don't need to fart and burp as much. You don't need to have all this indigestion. You won't have any obstructions.
Yeah.
You know, don't even have to eat all these whole food plant foods that you don't really enjoy eating. And you can eat steak and eggs. Yeah. You'll be better off. You'll have a healthier gut, you know.
Yeah. That's what when I went carnivore, very, very quickly, stopped all flatulence, stopped burping, just gone straight away. And I remember earlier you said when you have a meal, sometimes you feel this kind of gurgling almost, like the movement and the sound and the bubbling. I get nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. I guess it's the same for you now.
Yeah.
Also.
But it's funny, again, it's like inertia, because these people are so used to it. We just think that's normal.
Yeah.
Like if imagine everybody started hitting themselves in the face every time anything went wrong. That's just what we do when things go wrong. I'll hit myself in the face again. It's normal. Walking around, burping and farting, smelling of garlic. I don't know about you, but everybody smells of garlic now. It's really strange.
I don't know who you're hanging out with.
But I'm so sensitive to all these smells, because you think, I haven't eaten that for so long.
Ah, right.
It's really strange. Like if I walk past a microwave meal being cooked,
I get that.
Rotten. It just stinks. But it's nothing normal about that.
Yeah.
Processed grains and tomatoes.
Walking past fast food and smelling that deep fat fryer smell.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't stand it.
Yeah, exactly. Barbecue's a different story, but...
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned, if it was normal for everyone to hit themselves, no one would question it. Obviously, you went through that episode and you made it out. Obviously, you switched your diet. You sort of had the clarity. What would you say to people who are in the middle of that and can't see the light at the end of the tunnel? What do you think you could say to help them get out of that hole?
Yeah, it wouldn't be to talk to your friend, and it wouldn't be to take a walk.
Really?
Because it just doesn't work. I think that you've got to really sit down. It's almost like what Jordan Peterson would say, really. You need to sit at the edge of your bed and you ask yourself, what am I doing wrong every single day that's putting me in this position? Sometimes you might not know the answer to that, because if it's diet and you think you understand what nutrition really is and you don't, then you're not going to, that answer isn't going to be so obvious. But honestly, I would sit down at the edge of your bed and just question yourself, what am I doing every single day that's putting me in this position? Because most of the time you're failing to address responsibilities. It's that letter that you haven't opened. And then these accumulate and they sort of like, I don't know, you've got this rucksack and they just pile up more and more things, and the weight of the world gets heavier and heavier. You definitely need to look into your diet.
Okay.
You definitely need to look into your diet. And I think that nutritional ketosis is certainly the most therapeutic and effective way of treating mental conditions, no matter what it is.
I agree.
That's my opinion. That's just in terms of diet. And in terms of lifestyle, get yourself up with the sun. If you want to really do this, if you're serious about this, then you will be getting up with the sun and you'll be starting your day, and you'll have a little bit more drive. And it might be forced to begin with, but if you keep doing it long enough, you'll do it on autopilot. You'll find yourself waking up early. You've got the whole day ahead of you. You're going to start to see opportunities. You're going to start to see problems, solve that problem. Yeah. Don't leave things, even if it's hard, even better, do it anyway. Do it. The hard things are the best things to do. Because it's rewarding as well. And I think that when you start doing these things, rather than hedonistically kind of rewarding yourself with sort of easy self-gratification, masturbating or eating some more chocolate or going home early,
stuff, yeah.
anything like that. It's meaningless, it's vacuous, it's pathetic.
Yeah.
And I think the moment, again, I'm thinking of Jordan Peterson, but bear your cross, whether you're religious or not, you probably know what that means. Yeah, pick up your cross and bear it.
Okay.
You might have the adventure of your lifetime. That's the sort of thing that I would take from Jordan Peterson. It's so true. It's so true. In terms of the behavioural aspect, forgetting diet, that's what you need to do. It's the opposite of what you think. Don't stop. Don't go home early. Don't shy away. Don't just exist in the little box, play video games, watch another video. Stop all of that. Get up with the sunrise. You can go for a walk, great.
Yeah.
But get up with the sunrise and you'll start to see problems that need solving. Solve them. Don't just let them accumulate. Start emptying the bag of stress and move forward. Yeah, with courage. It takes courage. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy. And anyone in a position where they're really in a dark place and they feel trapped, they could hear their favourite person in the world talk about do this, do that, and it's still like climbing Mount Everest. Yeah. It's so difficult, If you haven't washed, take a shower, get up with the sun. You might be surprised, and go from there. But if you come across this and you're seeing us speak, then diet plays a humongous role. And for me, it's like the thought, that's my reason, like the thought of deviate. I don't want to be depressed anymore. No. I'm not interested.
I would never deviate after what I've done.
Birthday cake? Nah. Yeah. No thanks. Not interested.
You mentioned Jordan Peterson a couple of times now. Is he someone that you kind of someone that you resonated with to help you through tough times?
It's interesting because he was the very first person that brought light to the carnivore diet for me. At the time, I just heard about it, thought it was crazy. Also, just thought, poor guy.
Actually, same for me.
Right.
He was the first one that I looked at and thought, what is he doing?
I didn't have any negative things to say about it. I just thought, poor fella.
Yeah.
Actually, he's obviously in a position where he can only tolerate that. That sucks. I just remember thinking that. During the time, though, I didn't know Jordan that well, but I did stumble across more of his content and thought, wow, it's incredible. I love the way he breaks down different scenarios, the depth that he goes to with his thoughts, and I like the way he psychologically sort of breaks different things down. For example, just Disney movies, old Disney movies that you might have seen, and the way he would break it down. You think, that's awesome. The meaning that he finds, and his thing is, again, similar to what I was saying and really alluding to his work, is that if you have these issues, it's easy to pick the easy things, to shy away, to stop, to quit, to give up, he basically starts by saying, well, clean your room. That's actually the best place to start. If you cannot clean your room and keep on top of your mess, how on earth is anyone supposed to expect you to be able to take care of a family, have a good job, a mortgage, anything like you? It starts there, and some people kind of think this is just a benign, silly little thing that he says.
I agree with him.
Pathetic, but
I get that.
Wash yourself, groom, whatever. You need to maintain the integrity of you as an individual. You can't look after yourself. It's kind of pathetic, right? If you can't look after yourself, you're a burden now on someone else or multiple other people, on society. Everyone that is a burden on society failed to look after themselves. That's just a fact, right? Other than we will have some very unfortunate rarities where it's like they're in a situation, it's nothing that they could have done, But for the vast majority of human beings right now, they are a burden on other people or society, even with their health. And that's another thing, why diet is so important. If you're not looking after yourself, you might think, oh, well, it's my life. True, but are you a father? Are you a brother? Are you a boss? Because people are watching, and no one's going to be inspired, or no one's going to admire that. Yeah. It's not cool. It's not a good thing. It's not a virtue of any sort, I think to take responsibility for yourself. So I like Jordan Peterson's message. I think he's a very, very intelligent guy. I think a lot of people misinterpret what he says. I think he's a great role model for young men. That's not to say he's misogynistic. Far from it. Far, far from it. Again, massively misinterpreted for whatever reason. Jordan Peterson cares about human beings, not just men. or young boys and things like this. He cares about human beings, and he says what he thinks. That's another thing that I respect, and that's part of his identity. He will say that, to say what you think. It's not easy.
Yeah,
that's a scary thing to do, but something incredible happens when you say what you think.
Especially in the world of shadow banning and things like that. Yeah.
You're going to live a meaningful life, and people can listen and learn and admire that, because that takes courage.
Yeah.
I not long just spoke to Tammy, actually, his wife, did a podcast.
Oh, no way.
I'll hope be on her channel. So I'm looking for that when that comes out. But an interesting discussion. She's also struggled with her health, and they're all on line diet now.
Yeah.
Mikhaila,
yeah.
Tammy, they all have slight differences because we're all obviously individual. But I really respect that family, actually. And obviously Jordan was the one that brought light to the carnivore, but his daughter Mikhaila was the one that inspired me to take the leap. And then I obviously did the podcast with Tammy, and we spoke about some things and that.
Was Mikhaila on that podcast?
No. They're very, very busy as well. I did actually originally message Mikhaila. I emailed her because I thought it would be a great idea to try my best to have her as my first guest. I just thought that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But obviously they're super busy and understandable.
In terms of your personal health, do you have any future goals?
Just to be consistent, honestly, just to maintain the integrity of my health that I've achieved, because I've never really had great health. It took a long time to find, and now I've found it. I think I just owe it to myself to maintain. For me personally, not really. I don't, because I feel like I've resolved any issues. It's hard. I mean, I've really only got goals with what I'm doing about it, talking about it, raising awareness, things like that, rather than for myself now. To me, I'm all good. I've closed that chapter now with my IBD and the colitis. I don't owe, I'm kind of a free agent, if you like, but I definitely find meaning and purpose in speaking about it, because I think, the more the better. We need as many people to speak on this as possible, because not because we're a cult, it's the opposite. Yeah. This is the natural way of being. If you want to be a natural human in modernity, which is not easy to achieve, but to be the most robust human being that you can be, you have to be eating the right foods, and that appears to be fatty red meat, 70% minimum, I would say.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's up to you what you do with the other 30%.
Yeah.
I personally make it up with some egg yolks and pork, a little bit of fish,
cheese here and there, a bit of milk.
Cheese, tiny bit of milk here and there. That's me. But
And what about your personal life? Any potential goals you want to reach? Because obviously you were in a period where you couldn't have envisaged. You're in a relationship with Lucy now. You're here talking to me. I think you've achieved so much coming from where you were to now.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to go, beyond this?
That's a tough question, actually.
I guess nothing obvious.
I'm really thinking.
Yeah.
To continue to be grateful for what I have.
Yeah. Amazing.
And to not forget. To not forget what matters.
Yeah.
What you said essentially is that don't forget that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Remember where you came from.
Exactly.
And obviously you have a YouTube channel, alluded to it already, Carnivore.
Yeah.
Any goals for that? Where do you see that going? Obviously, talking about your own personal health is one thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans for that at all?
In terms of figures, not really. I suppose in the beginning you think like, I just want to reach as many people as possible. The goal hasn't really changed, despite the amount of subscribers I might have, despite, whether you have a good month in terms of views or a bad month. I think the goal really is just to be as accurate and helpful as possible.
Yeah.
That is genuinely my goal, and to be me. I'm definitely quite transparent. I'm very much myself. I don't sort of put anything on unless I'm being funny or entertaining or whatever. But just to be genuine, to tell the truth as far as I know, to be accurate and helpful, to help people.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Lee, this has been one of the most amazing conversations I've ever had in my life. And I'm not just saying that.
Appreciate
genuinely.
That.
It's been incredible. The stuff you've been through, I can't even wrap my head around some of the things you told me. And
That's all I know.
And I mean, to go from where you were to just sitting here, which is not a big deal for most people, to just sit here and have a conversation. Like I take my hat off to you.
Awesome.
I really do.
I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure.
And, if there's anything else we can work on, I'd love to have you back one day.
For sure. Awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.